now they've done this, and within 10 days, they've got the legislation passed. They're already raiding people at 2 o'clock in the morning and taking their guns now in New Zealand.
From Acapulco, Mexico, this is Anarchast.
Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of Anarchast, your home for anarchy on the internet. I have a multiple return guest coming on, a great guy. He's spoken at many Anarchapulcos, including this year, and he has a great show on YouTube under the channel Crow House, I believe is the main one, and he actually just got basically banned from YouTube, so I wanted to have him on. It's Max Igan, and I just wanted to mention right off the top, Max, you've been doing some incredible work lately. I've really noticed you take up your game in the last year, and really I've noticed you can see in the view counts on YouTube, you've been getting 100,000 views, 200,000 views very regularly because you've been putting out such great information, and your most recent one was on the New Zealand, which I call a false flag event, that happened with that mosque shooting, and you really covered that, and then just in the last 24 hours, you received a notice that you can't upload for 3 months on YouTube. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, very interesting. You know, I've been covering Christchurch a lot, and if you cover Christchurch, you cover the shooting there. That's it. You get deplatformed, you get banned. That's the way it's going. You could go and search on YouTube now for Christchurch, get banned. But if you cover Christchurch, you cover the shooting there. That's it. You get deplatformed, you get banned. That's the way it's going. You could go and search on YouTube now for Christchurch false flag, and all you will find are mainstream reports about Christchurch. Anybody who's saying anything that does not support the mainstream narrative is getting shadow banned on YouTube. And I've been really trying to address the amount of disinformation that's been spread about this. I mean, I totally believe that Christchurch was a false flag event. It's not what they're telling us it was, but by saying it's false flag does not mean it was fake, does not mean people died. People have been blurring the lines between fake and false flag, what it means, you know. From the evidence that I can see from the video and my analysis of the video, and I've gone through it frame by frame, people died at this event. It was a real event, but it's not what they're telling us. It wasn't a lone gunman. It wasn't a single shooter. And the video actually reveals that there were multiple players at the event. It shows the handlers. You can see that there were other people there helping him, revealed on the video. But as soon as this video is released, within hours, there are reports coming out saying this is all fake, CGI shell casings, no bodies, all crisis actors, all this stuff. These details that you cannot prove, that you will argue back and forth about all you want, but it's damage control so that you won't look at the other details the video is showing you. And these reports that it was all fake, it was all crisis actors, were actually coming out within hours because they really got caught with their hands in the cookie jar with this shooter's video. He was incredibly incompetent, this shooter. He was a real klutz, and he got a lot of extra players and a lot of extra stuff on the video that they really do not want you to see. And that's why I want people focusing on all this stuff, whether it was fake, whether it was this, whether it was that. And not only that, it makes the truth community, the independent media, look like a bunch of conspiracy theorists who are just pushing fake news. So this is going to be used to shut us down if we're not very careful. And it's a huge opportunity for us because they've been caught with their hands square in the cookie jar with this video. They really, really blew it with this shooter's video. There's so much revealed on it, Jeff. And because I'm reporting that, they've just shut me down. They've shut down my channel. I can't upload for 3 months. I actually appealed and I said, well, what's going on? Because the video they shut down, I mean, I uploaded a video and I went through point by point all the things that I found wrong with the Christchurch shooting. And then I thought, well, I've already got one strike against my channel. They'll probably give me another one for this, so I'm better off just deleting this video. It's already on BitChute now, so I'll just delete it, and I'll upload a little 1-minute clip and let people know why I've deleted it and where they can go and find it. And they flagged that 1-minute clip, which was me talking and had a spinning yin and yang sign. They flagged that clip for having inappropriate content. I mean, this is the spinning yin and yang sign and it's spoken dialogue. I think they were just really, really pissed off that they didn't get to flag the previous clip that I deleted it before they could flag it. So they flagged this one. So I appealed that, and I looked at my channel this morning, and I'm getting mixed reports from the channel because I can go to the dashboard page and it says uploads are disabled for this channel. But then I can click upload and it says I can upload in 15 minutes. So I don't know. I'm going to try tomorrow and see if I can just upload a 15-minute clip anyway, just to let people know that my actual show is going to be on my old channel, which is called AOD Scarecrow, which you can also find on YouTube. So but this is the way it's going. They're deplatforming everybody. And this Christchurch shooting and the fake news meme that is going to go with it is going to be used to deplatform people. In New Zealand, they've already set up a hotline, an emergency hotline, after the emergency, of course, where people can ring up and report, what they... Incredible amount of people are ringing up and reporting channels like Vinnie Eastwood, who's a truther in New Zealand. He's had the police visit his home 4 times in 4 days from people reporting him for spreading fake news about the Christchurch shooting. So you've got to say, we've had blanket censorship come in Australia. BitChute's banned. I mean, so many sites we can't access now in Australia. You've got to use a VPN to get to them, all because of Christchurch. You've got people in the United States talking about gun control, all because of Christchurch. And the response of the independent media has been to attack all the victims and their families and say, you're all fake, you're all crisis actors and all this sort of stuff. So you can see how it's going to be played. They've set it up perfectly, and it's going to bring about total lockdown, and it's going to lock us out if we're not careful on how we're reporting on this event. And the speed as well. I mean, like I said, within hours of this shooting happening, there were reports that it was fake and it was CGI. And if you suggest anything otherwise in the accepted official mainstream or COINTEL independent media narrative that it's all fake, you get waves upon waves of trolls, hundreds and hundreds of trolls on my channel to tell me that I'm this and I'm an agent, I'm supporting the government, I'm supporting the state by saying it's a black op carried out by the state. I'm supporting the state by not saying it's all fake. So they won't tell me by how saying it's a state-run black op I'm supporting the state, where I can tell you exactly how saying it's CGI and fake is supporting the state and supporting the fake news meme and supporting the entire lockdown of the independent media. And there's just waves and armies of trolls to prevent this opinion getting out, which is why they've limited my channel and just blacklisted me and got me out and just sort of swept me under the carpet. That's what they do. They just brush the truth aside and put it in the back room so you can't find it.
Yeah, absolutely. We've seen that for years now. Shadow banning, actual banning, just taking deplatforming, all that sort of things. Of anyone who's putting out any sort of truthful information, it's really quite amazing how fast they're getting, as well as you pointed out. For people out there who's kind of not sure about these sort of things, you're wondering, oh, false flag, that sounds strange. Well, 9/11 was a false flag event in order for the U.S. government and Israel and many other governments to get involved in the war of terror, which is still ongoing, with millions killed now. Even in Australia, where you are right now, Max, I believe it was Port Arthur back in the 90s. Is that yeah, that was the one. That was a false flag event. They just shot a bunch of people, and within, was it months or like weeks, they had pretty much banned all firearms in Australia.
Well, it's even been more so in New Zealand. In New Zealand, they had firearms there. Last year, they tried to take the firearms from the people and give police more guns, and the people said, no, we don't want this happening. And then now they've done this, and within 10 days, they've got the legislation passed. They're already raiding people at 2 o'clock in the morning and taking their guns now in New Zealand. It's incredible. They had the legislation, they had the gun legislation ready there within minutes of this event happening, like literally within minutes. This is a 600-page, legislation. So they're like typing really, really, really fast and thinking really, really,
just
really
like
fast.
The Patriot Act in 9/11.
Just getting this straight out there, like within minutes. And they've got it passed within 10 days. They even circumvented the gun lobby. The gun lobby didn't even have time to organise and even write out a form of complaint before the legislation's passed, and they're stealing people's guns so quick. It's just incredible.
Yeah, well, it's all planned ahead of time. So just like with 9/11, within days they had that phone book size Patriot Act all written. I don't know if anyone's ever dealt with lawyers and politicians. You can't write anything like that fast. So they had it already. And actually, back with the New Zealand shooting event or whatever happened there, the first I saw a post on Facebook. That's usually where I see something, and someone said, "Oh, some 50 people just got shot in New Zealand." So I just Google it. The very first thing that pops up is the Prime Murderer of New Zealand, and she has a press conference, and the first thing she says is, well, I'll tell you one thing, gun laws are going to change. And it's been less than 2 weeks now, and I just saw a headline yesterday that New Zealanders are shocked at the rate with which legislation to take away guns is going through without any sort of public involvement.
Yeah, exactly. 10 days, it's all through. It's done. They're already raiding people's homes before the legislation was passed. People need to really look at this. If you think of 9/11 as being the beginning of the end game, the big move that started the war on terror. What's happening in Christchurch is 9/11 2.0. This is the beginning of the final move of the end game. This Christchurch event, because it's sleepy, quiet little New Zealand, away from everywhere, nothing ever happens in New Zealand, and suddenly we have this mass shooting, and the suspect is your average white guy next door who never did anything to offend or hurt anybody, that you just thought was just a normal guy. That's the enemy that you have to look out for. So you can see how they're playing this. This is the beginning of the end game now. This is the beginning of the final move. And it's a ripple effect. It's going to go out to all countries. It's already affected us majorly in Australia, had major effects in New Zealand already. It's going to come out, ripple effect across America. I mean, they're trying to tie Trump into this. I mean, you know, the way they're doing it with everything. But sleepy little New Zealand where this could never happen. But when you consider the fake news meme that they created with Sandy Hook, you know, and how everyone's taken the bait, hook, line, and sinker. All they have to do is stage Sandy Hook, and people say, "Oh, everything's fake. Nobody ever dies." Then you've got Pizzagate, fake news. Now suddenly the truth movement is encouraging people to go and attack pizza stores because of their belief systems. And now we look at the terrorist manifesto that Brendan Tarrant's written for New Zealand, which looks like he's got environmentalism. He's got all sorts of stuff in there. It looks like basically an ideology of the truth movement, only it's peppered with all of this extremist rhetoric. So it makes you and I look like extremists, right-wing extremists. We're the people who influenced Brendan Tarrant to go and shoot up this mosque. And what our response was when he did it? We started attacking all the victims and calling them crisis actors and saying it's all fake news and all of this stuff. And they've got it all set up perfectly for this to roll out. And it's perfect as well. They were having a terror drill in New Zealand called, and there's a company called, I think it's Crisis X was the name of the company. And what they specialise in is terror simulations. So they've got dummies there with squib packs and all the stuff they can do to simulate a terror event, so people can go in and they can see blood coming out of bodies and all sorts of stuff, all completely fake. They've got everything there in New Zealand, so all the conspiracy theorists could say, "Oh, that's what they used to do this event." But they didn't. This was a real event. But they got everything there to get the conspiracy world right on board so they can make up all this sorts of conjecture about it. Perfectly planned. They've had this months planned in advance for months. Even setting up the 8chan dialogue of Brendan Tarrant. You look at his 8chan chats and look at what he's saying in the chats. This is not the same person who wrote that manifesto. The manifesto is quite well written. Whether you like what it says or not, it's well written. You know, this isn't the same guy that's typing these ridiculous comments in 8chan. It's not the same person. It's not possible. You know, so they've set this up well in advance for this to happen. The profile in 8chan is just this down-home ochre Australian average guy with a bottle of Foster's. So, you know, they've set this whole thing up to vilify us and to vilify the average person next door. And it all goes back and ties into Sandy Hook and Pizzagate and the whole thing. This is a huge event in Christchurch. This is a major, major chess move that they've played, which is having a huge ripple effect. And they really desperately need people to buy into this "it's all fake" and CGI meme because of what else is revealed in the video. If people don't look at those details, then they're going to look at the real details. And if they look at the real details, then it's going to bring the government down. And that's the way counterintelligence works. You know, if there's a leak, you don't try to cover up the leak. You embellish the leak to the point that it becomes unbelievable, or you get people focusing on details of the leak that you tell them are important, which aren't, so that they don't look at the actual important details of the leak, which are the most relevant stuff. They just surround it with as much noise as they can. But you never try to cover it up, just embellish it. If you cover it up, it shows the people you're trying to hide it. So you just make it more and more and more and more, and suddenly the woman on the corner had an alien for a baby. You know what I mean? They just push it to the extreme that they can, you know. So people throw the baby out with the bathwater, but they're not looking at the relevant details of this. There's 5 relevant points of what happened in Christchurch. The fact that there are multiple players there you can see. The fact that there was a car that was there that left halfway through the proceedings. The fact that he was being alerted to the fact that there were people escaping from the perimeter on 3 different points that he had no line of sight to, and he dropped everything and ran there to get them, shows that someone was alerting him to these things were happening. And the fact that you cannot gone to Al Noor Mosque, carried out 6 minutes of shooting, then driven all the way to Linwood Mosque and carried out an attack there, and then driven to where he was when the police rammed his car, all in the allotted time. It simply can't be done. So there's 5 points that show what the government is telling you is a lie, And Jacinda Ardern is disarming the people of New Zealand under false pretenses, and this is all clearly evidenced by the video itself. If we can just get rid of the smoke and mirrors, get rid of the noise, get rid of all this argument, and focus on the details of the video that do not require conjecture, do not require debate, they are all quite there, clearly provable, not open for debate at all evidenced by the video itself. If we can focus on that, we could bring this whole system down, because we can show exactly how they carry out these attacks, because they've been caught with their hand in the cookie jar. They blew it so badly with the way they recorded this video, and there's so much evidence on it, and that's why it's illegal to watch it.
Yeah, I wanted to bring that up. That's been the most interesting aspect of this particular false flag. They always make major mistakes. I don't even know if it's on purpose or not. For example, 9/11, you can't knock down 3 buildings with 2 airplanes at free fall speed. There's thousands of architects and engineers who say that's impossible. There's no video of the plane hitting the pentagram. There's no plane in the field in Pennsylvania. So tons and tons of errors, or maybe they just think we're all so stupid they don't even care. And numerous other ones and other false flags as well where they make errors. This one was really interesting because apparently this guy live streamed it on Facebook, but then they tried to take it down from every single place you could find it, and within a day they had made it illegal, and if you were to share that video you were supposed to get something like 10 to 25 years in jail, and they arrested a guy that day. This all happened very fast, and you had a bit of an interesting theory on this video, and maybe it was an accident that it got released. What's your take on it?
Look, I think now I've looked further into it. I think they meant to live stream it, but the guy was such a klutz that they didn't mean him to get all the stuff that he got on camera. Like when he went into the room, he dropped all his magazines. He was constantly running back and forth. He just didn't get anything right. And there's too much stuff on the video that they didn't want you to see. I mean, they must be, the world police or the world government must be going, man, bloody Kiwis, they can't even stage a false flag event properly, you know. Well, because killers are on there. That's the 10 to 14 years jail if you watch it in New Zealand, 10 to 14 years jail if you share it, 10 to 14 years if you say anything about the video apart from negative, 10 to 14 years. Like stuff that I've done analysing the video and showing people where the extra players are, the people in New Zealand can't even watch my videos analysing the video, because if they do, they'll get 10 years jail. I mean, this is unprecedented. This video is completely banned, and the reason it's banned is because it shows the extra players. I mean, they really, really messed up with this video, because the guy, I mean, maybe he wasn't programmed well enough, but he was a complete klutz. It was a complete klutz. And the fact that they got the extra players, the fact that the car left halfway through, I mean, there's so much stuff there that shows it's not what they're telling us. It's not a single shooter. It's not possible that it was a single shooter. Even if it was one gunman doing it all, it's not possible that he was working alone, because we can see the other players on the video. You know, we can see this car leaving. We can see this guy standing by the wall. We can see a guy ushering him in the driveway. We can see the other players. So that's why they're so freaked out about it. You know, perhaps he wasn't supposed to turn the camera on that early or whatever. I don't know. But, I mean, obviously they meant to stream it because Facebook went down the day before. They wanted everybody's attention on Facebook. So I think they meant to stream it. I don't know. They just blew it. They blew it so badly. Yeah, I mean, I think they wanted to have the world's first social media murder, because they really want to bring in massive surveillance and monitoring on social media. But they just got all this extra stuff. I mean, I don't know what the reasons are. This is stuff we can speculate on. I can't answer. All I know is what I can see on this video. And what I see is that the New Zealand government is lying through their teeth, and we've got them with their pants down. And if we can apply this to other ones, if we can apply the understanding we've got from this video and just consider that some of the other shootings we've seen around the world may well have been run in the same way, well, perhaps we can reach Joe Public out there and get them to see what we're really facing here. But at the moment, we're just looking like a bunch of idiots. We're just looking like a bunch of conspiracy theorists that are spreading disinformation and calling all these people crisis actors and saying everything's fake. And nobody's got any idea. This has all been called by people who weren't there. And all these points that you can't prove. You can't answer why the bodies were in the state that they were in, or where they were, or whether they were dead first, or whether there should have been more blood, or whether there should have been this, or whether there should have been that. It's all conjecture and speculation. But all the stuff that I've pointed out in this video is stuff that isn't conjecture and speculation. It shows the government did this, and that's what's important, you know.
Yeah, it's if there's one bit of a bright side to all these videos coming out speculating on what actually happened. I remember before 9/11, I didn't know anyone who even thought anything like this was even possible. Even for years after 9/11, I talk about, I don't think it's what they said it was, and everyone's like, you're crazy. They said on the news it was this, and now most people just don't believe the news. And now there's so many people out there putting together pretty wild theories on what might have happened. I think in a way it's kind of good, but you have to wonder to what extent it's sort of COINTELPRO type stuff where they're trying to put out just incredibly ridiculous stuff so that if someone sees that and they hear, oh, Max and Jeff are talking about it, well, they must be crazy because that was the stupidest, craziest video I've ever seen. There's just no way that's possible. So the whole anyone questioning it must be crazy.
Yeah, it's poisoning the well. It's what they do. And I've seen sites sort of put out, I watched an incredible article, I read an amazing article by Robert Steele the other day. David Robert Steele. First half of the article, brilliant. Told you exactly what the state's doing, told you about the surveillance, told you exactly where we're going. Then the last half of the article was all about how everything in this shooting is fake. It's all CGI shell casings, no victims, no blood, no bodies. All this stuff which is completely provable disinformation, which is how counterintelligence works. They give you all the good stuff and they tell you exactly what's going on. And then the last half of the article is all this conspiracy stuff, which will cause you to throw the first half of the article away, throw the baby out with the bathwater. That's how it works. Like I said, you don't cover up a leak. You embellish it to the point that it's unbelievable. And then it makes people like you and I sound like we're supporting this other stuff that's all been thrown in with it. Just add more and more to it, like I said, until the girl down the corner has just had an alien for a baby, so that everybody throws everything away. That's what they do. That's classic counterintelligence. And the beauty of this is the speed that the COINTEL narrative was launched, like I said, within hours of this video coming out, because of what this video actually reveals. They desperately want people to be focusing on all these other little points that they can't prove, that they will argue about back and forth forever and ever, and not look at the fact that there are extra players there, not look at the stuff that's happening in your peripheral vision. Focus on all these these things that they tell you are important, which aren't. That's counterintelligence. And in a way, it's a gift, because the huge counterintelligence movement within the independent media has fully exposed themselves by their misreporting on this video, because all you've got to do is look at the video yourself to see that what they're bringing out, what they're giving you, is not misinterpretations. It's not mistakes. These are outright lies that are provably outright lies. And I'd say right now, I did 10 years' work or 7 years' work. I worked at film studios here on the Gold Coast in Australia. I've worked on Dark City. I worked on Pitch Black. I worked on Thornburs, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, Babe 2, Lethal Weapon 3. I've done a lot of work in films in my old days. I've done a lot of special effects. Since then, I've done 10 years' work video editing, CGI, all the stuff I do on my video clips. I've analysed this film, all 20,319 frames of this shooter's video. And I'll tell you right now, there's no special effects in it. There's no CGI. What we're dealing with is choppy bandwidth. This is a real video. It's real shootings. Whether some people in the room were already dead, where the bodies were brought in there and handlers brought them in and the handlers were shot. These are points we can debate and speculate on all we want. I don't know. Maybe it was just people who hid in the corner. I don't know. Nobody knows. These are not points that we want to get bogged down and debate about, because they're points we can't prove. What we can prove is there were handlers there. There were extra people involved, and the government's lying. And that's important. That's incredibly important, because this is the first time that we've ever got a false flag event on tape and we can see the extra players. We can speculate what happened on 9/11 and stuff, and it makes perfect sense that it could not have been the government story. But we can't show anything to actually confirm that there were other people there doing what we suggest they were doing. But in this Christchurch video, we can. We don't have to speculate. There they are. There's the guy standing by the wall. There he is. He ran back over the tree. Someone's trying to call me. There he was. He ran back under the tree. I mean, we can see all of this stuff on the video. It's not open for conjecture. This is unique. This is a gift to us. And it's also a gift that the COINTEL narrative has had to launch itself so quickly and snowball this whole fake claim out there, because these guys have exposed themselves as well. Now we can see where these fake narratives are coming from. And all it's going to require for people to go through this is to think for themselves and realize that what this is about is truth and freedom. And if you're out there and you really want to make a difference in the world, that's what this is about. It's not about making a name for yourself. It isn't a popularity contest. It isn't about who's got the scoop first or who wants to sell their books or DVDs or get you to come and subscribe to their website or any of that shit. It's about freedom. This is about freedom, and it's about truth, and it's about finding a way to improve the human condition. And if we can get that focus, this is a gift to us. This whole thing, the way it's played out, is a gift. Because now we can see the players, now we can see how it's done, and now we've got the evidence, all the evidence we need that the governments are full of shit. They're all lying. So, let's seize this by the horns and do the right thing with it, Jeff.
Yeah, totally. I've been trying for a while. It's kind of funny how people are. I think in some ways people feel a bit helpless, right? Like if you're sitting there in the U.S. and you looked into it and you're like, yeah, that was definitely a government false flag event. What can you do about it, right? That's sort of like a big question I think a lot of people have is, we know they're doing all these things. We know it's a massive problem. What can we do about it?
Well, awareness, support each other, support each other. I mean, all of this it happens because of our respect for authority, and we're too scared to stand up to it, because when we do, we stand up by ourselves. We get banged on the head because we've never really connected with the people around us. We don't have any groundswell in the community because, often we don't respect ourselves enough to actually respect other people. And that's why it always comes back to the self, comes back to the discovery of the self. I mean, I've been saying this for years and years. Once you really know yourself and you know who you are, you question these people. You realize that they're just people. They don't have any authority over you. And a true respect for yourself, if you can truly love yourself, then respect and love and compassion for other people comes by default. You start to realize that they're in the same boat as you. And suddenly we have this huge groundswell of community who will stand against this. And all we have to do is say no. It isn't like we have to have a revolution and march down the street with guns or go and have a protest or anything. I mean, all these protests do is, they're okay to show a show of solidarity so there's other people around who think like you, but they don't ever get anywhere. You just make yourself a target. You go down the street and you march with your placard, and then the riot police come along and they just beat you all up. The riot police, they come to start a riot. That's why they're called the riot police. And all the violence of these protests is always started by the police. That's why they come. So why go and do it? The best protest you could do is stay home. Stop complying. Imagine if the whole world stayed home for a day and didn't spend any credit cards and didn't use any money and didn't use the banking system and didn't go and shop and buy gas or any of that stuff. If they all just stayed home with their families for a day, imagine what would happen. It would send a shockwave around the entire world. The best form of non-compliance and the best form of rebellion against this system is to love people and to love yourself, to love those around you and support those around you. And once you do that, the system goes away. Now, we don't actually need these people. The only reason we need government is to protect us from the other governments. It's the same. It's a scam. War and terrorism, threat from the other country. Well, it's not the other country. The other country isn't going to march over here and hurt you. It's the government. It's your government and that government saying, hey, let's have a little face-off with each other and scare the shit out of all our people. That's all it is. It's a scam. All of these wars, it's just the governments that do it all. I look at the world and I view it as, people have to step back and realise that we don't really have governments. What we have is a multinational, multi-generational criminal cabal which is masquerading as governments in all our countries, and they play each other off against each other. Who wants to play the enemy this week so they can put the shits out our people? That's all they do. And every country you go to, the people in the country live in fear of terrorism from the people next door, and they live in fear of their own governments. But their governments will tell them, this is the place you need to be. All the economies are collapsing everywhere else. We've got the stronger country. We're the ones that are going forward. Don't go there. So it's all better here. Everywhere you go, it's all the same. It's the same story. It doesn't matter which country you're in, and they all work together to do it. It's a scam. It's a scam. We just got this bunch of criminals that have put themselves in place, and they're puppeteering the whole thing, and they're pretending to be government. And all they're doing is keeping us safe from the other governments. It's ridiculous. It's a complete scam. Anarchy is the way to go, Jeff. You know that. Really self-governance, folks. We don't need these people. Just realise who and what we are. That's the way out of this mess. There is no other way out of it. There's no political solution. There's no revolutionary solution. Clear thinking is the most revolutionary action you can carry out. Being yourself and loving the people around you is a revolutionary act. And that's how to get out of the mess. But I mean, you try to tell
won't even get very far, you'll see them.
You want to sit there and just watch it all happen and get told that it's safe to go outside now. They want the world to change, but they don't really want to participate in making
He's a big
that change.
boy. Out of everybody, I trust him the most out there.
Who wants to change? Who wants to see change? Yes, yes. Who wants to change? Oh, you know, it's the same thing. You know, that's where it comes from, Jeff. It comes from us. We don't actually have to do any of this. This whole system is just an idea that somebody had. And we've just been taught to go along with it because we're too scared to do anything else. We're too scared to really be ourselves and see the beauty of ourselves. You know, people want freedom, but they don't want self-responsibility. And really, it's one and the same thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think people realize how deep this all goes, and you pointed out a lot of it there. A lot of people think, "Oh, Russia's going, they might go to war with the U.S." It's like the same people run all the countries. It's actually one of the most ingenious scams. It's like the most ingenious scam I've ever heard of. Enslave the entire planet, make it so hardly anyone even knows they're slaves. Take about half of everything that everyone makes, and actually have them groveling and thanking you for it. It's unbelievable scam. But as you pointed out, as people start to wake up and they start to realize who they are and they start to take back their own power and say, no one has authority over me, things will change. So we'll see what happens. We'll also see if this channel's online after this video, because apparently a lot of things talking about this Christchurch shooting are being taken down. So we'll find out that. So that's a bit of the last question here, Max, is where are you otherwise, other than YouTube? Where can we see all of your great content now? And you pointed out BitChute has been banned by Australia, so they're already starting to figure out where these decentralized platforms are and banning them on a countrywide level. So we've got to work out for us to stay one step ahead of them.
Yeah, well, I'm looking for other platforms to upload videos to, but BitChute, I mean, you can access BitChute if you use a VPN, but it's banned in Australia here under normal circumstances. I've got my other YouTube channel. My website, thecrowhouse.com, will be there as long as it can be, until they take that down. But people have to realise how we're being played with all this and where it's going. I mean, the truth is getting harder and harder to find. And I'll just stay online as long as I can, and I'll do everything I can to keep the word coming out. But at the moment, I mean, the AOD Scarecrow channel, just go to my website, thecrowhouse.com, see what you can get from there, and continue. Hopefully it won't have to continue for that long. Hopefully it'll get so in your face soon that people will actually see it and they'll see the need to make change and stand up for themselves. They'll see where they're being led. It's pretty ugly, the rollout of 5G. 5G is coming online in my neighbourhood now, so it's just getting ugly. I'm trying to tell the people about it, and they're all happy that it's coming. I think it's a good thing. It's going to be good for us. And I show them the specs, and they're just glazed over their eyes. It's just like taking the outcome. It's an interesting ride, but it's not crazy yet, so buckle up, folks. We ain't seen nothing yet. Yeah, every about me, crowhouse.com, and that's best I do with them. I don't know what future platforms we'll have up. We'll find them. I'll be there. I certainly don't see my channel last on YouTube too. There'll be 175,000 subscribers and 11 years work down the YouTube, but it's the way it goes. I've still got it all backed up. I can post it even somewhere.
Yeah, that's correct. As far as Vinny Eastwood, I did see some of his videos and coverage of the event. I thought it was great. He's great. If you're interested in this topic, look into his channel. It's still up by the way. I saw go or something.
His channel closed, but apparently he can live stream back up to his main channel again. So hopefully it will happen tomorrow. Hopefully they'll give me much back in. But I'm going to try to upload a short video tomorrow anyway and see if it takes them. But if not, be on my OD channel. But the channel's back now, so it's a good thing.
That's great. And Max pointed out he has a website. I would say for anyone whose content you really like, make sure you go to their website. Make sure you sign up for their email list and things like that. I don't know if you have one, Max, but we do at Anarchast and the Dollar Vigilante. So just go to either of our websites and just type in your email. And then whenever we have a new video or any information, we send it out. So if we're kicked off of YouTube and you can't find us on BitChute because it's banned in your country and you can't get the VPN working, we'll tell you where you can go to get the content. So as Max said, they're going to keep trying to stop us, and we're going to keep trying to find ways around it, and they'll actually just end up making us stronger in the end, in my opinion. But it is a back and forth battle, so make sure that you do subscribe directly to people's channel, their websites, in case they do go down like Max. We'll find out probably tomorrow if he's been shut down for the next 3 months of uploading or not. And Max, if you do have sites that you do upload to that you didn't mention, just send me the links. We'll put that down below. Anarchast and Dollar Vigilante videos, we put them on BitChute, BitTube, all kinds of sites. We'll have those down below. Just so you know, in case we do get shut down after this video, and as Max was saying, I'm expecting to get shut down fairly soon too. Everyone's getting shut down now. So, you know, if you want to keep in the loop, you want to keep getting this sort of content, make sure you get active and just go to our websites and keep in touch with us. And that'll be probably one of the better ways to keep in touch in the future. So, Max, any last words before I let you go?
No, all good, Jeff. Thanks for having me on, brother. And stay safe, people. These are desperate and dangerous times, and stay safe through the whole thing. And remember to, support the people around you, help the people around you. The power of community can achieve amazing things. And the fat lady hasn't sung yet. She's warming up in the back room, though, so we need to pay attention. Thanks for having me on, brother. Absolute pleasure to talk to you again, and I'll see you at Acapulco next year.
Awesome. Yeah, you did a great speech this year. I should point out all speeches of Acapulco are available for sale now. We'll have the link to that down below, including Max's speech and about 50 or 100 other amazing ones. So check that out. And it's just going to be interesting times. I would just say to people out there, don't get too fear-based. That's really what they want from most people, and they really live off of that fear. Be aware of what's going on. Improve your life. Get connected, as Max said, get connected with your family, your friends. Do things outside of the system, whether you're using cryptocurrencies instead of fiat currencies and things like that. But don't live in fear. There's really nothing to fear in the end, in my opinion. But it's very interesting times. Thank you very much, Max, for coming on. If you like this video, please like, subscribe, share down below. Not that we're going to be on YouTube much longer. And that's it for Anarchast, your home for anarchy on the internet. Peace, love, and anarchy.
Your rights to say what you want, think what you want, raise your kids the way you want, transact with who you want, and put what you want into your body are under attack. There's never been a time in history when this was more true than today. But at the same time, there's been an awakening of people like you who recognize that freedom is within reach, and they're turning the tables on the global elite. That's why, for the last 4 years, thousands of free thinkers and voluntarists like you had made the journey to Acapulco, Mexico to learn, interact, and create more freedom in their own lives. You may not have made it to the event, or if you did, you're likely to want to experience it again and again in your own home. I'm talking about 4 action-packed days of exciting, informed, expert speakers, all of whom are at the top of their game and all icons in the freedom and liberty movements. Visit anarchapulco.com/2019 VOD now to experience Anarchapulco and Cryptopulco 2019 as many times as you want, from the comfort of your own home or office.
Now, next speaker is a speaker who have been at Open Mind Conference before. I really respect people like Max and James Corbett and all the kind of people who have the capability to see the matrix, to see the system, and explain for us what is going on. Because it makes it so much easier for us who's interested in all this to do the research and actually cover a subject. We are so fortunate that many of those come to Open Mind Conference and stand on this stage and tell us about it. And Max Igan is a man with a lot of talent, from being a social and political analyst at the Crow House, which is the homepage of Max Igan, to filmmaker, to film like Transformation. How many of you have seen Transformation? My God, you are lucky, those who haven't seen it. This is a fantastic film because Max, besides its very beautiful make, it actually tells about how the civilization was made, why it is as it is, and where we are going. But at the same time, his Australian accent is talking with this fantastic voice you have, Max, and with fantastic music put on, and he talks on the beat. He told me that when we were together in Portugal, you remember? Yeah. I said, why can it be this film works so good? I talk on the beat. So Max will, with his lecture now, try to give you some hints about how to work in this technocratic world we are living in, so you're not using all your energy the wrong way. Please welcome Max Igan.
Thank you, Frank. Thank you, brother. Wonderful intro. Thank you, Frank. Thank you to all of you guys for being here as well. We couldn't do this without you. That's the best thing about these events is the people that I meet here. You meet intelligent people at these events, people you can actually have a conversation with. That's always refreshing. You don't get a lot of that in the real world. So I just kind of wing it with these things. I don't really know where I'm going. So I put something together this morning, so we'll just see what we can make of it, okay? This is the name of today's talk, okay? The Rise of Technocracy, Which Path to Freedom, Looking Behind the Veil. And I like to include this in every talk. Bit of a reality check, folks. I don't like to sort of pull any punches with what I say. And what I'm offering you here, it's really important to understand what I'm offering you here is my perspective, based on what I've looked at, what I've been able to make of it, and where I think we're going from that. It's really important to understand with all the speakers that you see, what they're offering you is their perspective. You know, is it right? Are they true? Have we got it all right? Well, possibly we have. So it's up to you to look at that and take what you can from it and put the big picture together yourself, because very often times you people who come to these conferences have more access to information than what we, the speakers, do, because we often don't get to hear the other speakers. I certainly didn't yesterday. I was a bit jet lagged. If anyone saw the brown gnome in the poncho sleeping around the place in various areas, that was me trying to cope with being in Denmark. So I'm sort of still on LA time. So I always like to include this as well. I may say some things that you might sort of not like, but it's just the way it goes. I apologise in advance, but not really. That's just the way it goes. But life, folks, what is life? Life is wisdom's dare. This is a picture by a friend of mine called Adam Scott Miller. And I like to include this in every talk because life is wisdom's dare. It's what we do with it, what we do with this journey. All of it really comes up to us. And even when we look at the world today, what we're facing in the world really is wrong behaviour from everybody, and it's through our tolerance. You know, and it's really wisdom's dare. How do we get out of this situation? This, again, is wisdom's dare. We just got to look at the right path. And so many paths are being offered to us. Which path do we want to go? There's so many different movements that come into play, different ideas, different concepts, different systems. That's the problem when trying to get out of this system. People say, well, if you don't like this system that we're in, what's the new idea? What's your new system? And ultimately, there's nothing really wrong with this system. This system could work. We don't need to change the system. What we need to change is what's in here, because it's what's in here that changes everything. People say if you change what's in the inside, you change the outside world. And people think, okay, I can sit here and meditate, and then I'm going to open my eyes and the world's changed. It doesn't work that way. You've actually got to apply it to the world you live in. You're in a physical world for a reality. It's because you're supposed to participate. There's a clue there. You exist. Might be a clue in that for people. You're supposed to participate in this world. But if you apply your heart to every situation that you're in, you'll find that you can make a change. It's our tolerance of wrong behaviour that allows all this stuff to happen, allows the system to do what it does. You know, when we try to find a way out, it's all these different ideas people give us, but we don't look at the main concept. Even with things like Michael Tellinger and the Ubuntu movement, great idea, this whole concept of a giving society, a society where we don't need money. It's a great idea, but if people don't change what's in their heart, then it doesn't matter. We'll just end up back in the same spot. But if we change what's in our heart and change the way we interact with people on an everyday basis, everybody we come into contact with, treat them in lakesh, as yourself, you know, then we change the world. That's how it works. We don't have to change anything else. The system has to change around us if we choose the right path. And it's just got to be the path with a heart. That's the path we need. The path that we're choosing at the moment doesn't really have much of a heart. When we look at what we're doing to the world, it doesn't really have much of a heart. And ultimately, why we have to do this and why I'm out here doing this and why all the speakers come here to do all the things we do is because of these guys. It's because of these guys, because these guys are very, very precious. The children. You know, what we've created with this world, what we've allowed to happen the past few generations, it's pretty disgraceful. Admittedly, we were coerced into it, we were trained, we were led down this path, but it's pretty disgraceful what we've allowed the world to become. And these guys are really important. And if we don't do something about these guys, the kids that are starting school now, by the time they come out of school, by the time they come out of college in another 10 years,
they're not going to have any reference point for what freedom could have looked like or what the world could have been, because they're all getting locked into this digital world. They're getting locked into this iPad world. So I want kids to have iPads at very early ages. But what do we do to the kids now? You know, they're born, we fill them full of poisons. The government loves to do that on the guise of helping them. And then what do we do with our home lives? We put them in front of the TV and we let the TV look after them. We send them off to the education system. They get trained to be little clones. They go out into the world. They get caught in the credit trap. They end up locked into that, and that's their life. And they sit back and pretend to enjoy it. This guy's having a great time. Got his beer, got his chips, got his remote control. His team's winning. He doesn't even notice that he's chained to a wall of debt. And that's life. That's life. And we carry that debt around with us for the rest of our lives. We try to get information. The TV is very good at giving us information. They really feed us what we want to know. We get programmed by religion, all programmed into division. We divide. Everything about the system is designed to divide, and that's the sum total of our life in civilization. We work hard to get the house and get all this stuff, this American dream, the Norwegian dream, the Danish dream, whichever dream, it's all the same dream. But it's all dream. It's like George Carlin said, the American dream. They call it the American dream because you have to be asleep to believe it. And that's just really the way it is. It's the same everywhere, because that's the sum total of everything that we do. And it's because people just sit there and they get their information from the one source. They just sit there and they get what they're fed, and meanwhile the system just marches on. That's what we get. It just marches out across the world doing what it does. The drums of war sound, and we just go along with it. We get fed all this stuff by the TV, and we just go along with it. So people look at it, they get to a point in life and they look at it. They realise that there's this Leviathan, there's this thing that's controlling everything. And it's just this octopus. You realise that there's the money system. Everyone knows what money does, debt-based currency. Debt-based currency, the usurious money system, the Jewish usurious monetary system, yes, those guys, they put that system in place. The usurious monetary system is designed to create scarcity. That's what it is. It's a debt-based economy. The debt can never be paid. The interest can never be paid on the loan. And so it puts everybody in scarcity. A debt-based usurious monetary system creates the need for efficiency in work. It creates the need for automation. It creates the need for more information, more control. It creates the need for everything to lead exactly to where we've been led, exactly to where we are now. The whole automated system, the smart grid that's coming online, you can really trace it back. It's a result of usury. It's a result of scarcity. And it's this octopus that just controls the world. So we see it, we realise it's everywhere, and we look. From the United States. Like I said, who controls it? There are certain influences there that certainly control the direction of the US government, and we know who that is. It controls the US education system, controls the entire global education system, and now it's going even deeper and it's starting to control the entire electrical grid, the entire internet, the entire system itself in every aspect. That's where we're heading. And people see it. They see all these problems happening, so they think, well, what are we going to do about it? We've got to get a new leader. We'll have an election. That's what we'll do. That's what they did in the United States. They had an election. Wasn't that great? Have an election. Who thought Hillary Clinton was going to win? I did. I seriously thought Hillary Clinton was pegged to win. I really thought she was. But then they played a little bait and switch on us. And why didn't Hillary Clinton win? All the emails came out, all those Clinton emails, you remember? All the pedophile ring, all that stuff, Pizzagate. That's what happened with Hillary Clinton. That all came out, all those emails came out perfectly timed, and people saw what they were electing into the Oval Office. They were going to elect this thing into power. And of course her election campaign didn't help very much either. She really did a bad job with that. And people just saw what they were electing. Really? You want that in the White House? I don't know. So they went for Trump. Well, what was that? More snake oil for the masses, because things are just not what they seem. They're just not what they seem. I love that picture. Things just aren't what they seem at first glance, are they? So what did they get when they got Trump? They just got another snake with a Twitter account, another octopus with a Twitter account. And people try to go through this and they try to figure out what's going on. Like I said, all they get is rubbish from the television. And what have we seen since Trump's been elected? We've seen all this rhetoric on the floor in the United States, all this battling of left and right. The Antifa movement, all of this anti-Trump stuff that's happened, and it's all theatre for the masses. It's all theatre for the masses, left and right paradigm. The whole election was rigged from the beginning. Trump was meant to win. Of course he was meant to win. Trump actually mentioned Pizzagate back in, October last year, about 2 months before the term was coined. He mentioned in an interview, I've been going back and forth between Anthony Weinergate and Pizzagate, and it just got lost in the text and no one really noticed it. But that was 2 months before Pizzagate ever came out, because it was all a play. It was all a play to bring all this wave against Hillary Clinton to get Trump in, to throw the truth community a bone, so we'd all think this guy's in there batting for us, and he's not. He's not. It's the same thing. It's like Kissinger said, it's not what's true, it's a matter of what's perceived to be true. The whole thing, it's theatre for the masses, folks, because what's changed since Trump got in? Really, nothing's changed. Nothing's changed. It's all gone down the same path, because it's all smoke and mirrors from the beginning. Because what we've got in the world is not really a political system. What we've got in the world, encompassing all governments in all countries, is a criminal class that's running the world. People call it an oligarchy. I call it a cacistocracy. It's a cacistocracy. This is a word that was taken out of the dictionary about 100 years ago. It's a real word. Cacistocracy, defined as governance by the worst elements of society who govern exclusively in their own interest and to the permanent detriment of all other classes. That's what we got. Comes from the Baltic kaka. Kaka, shit. Rule by the shit people. That's what we've got, folks. Rule by the shit people. You can see why they took this word out of the dictionary. It's still a real word, but you can see why they took it out of the dictionary. It's not even an oligarchy. It's not even all these things we say it is. It's a criminal class. It's a criminal class who rules by Hegelian dialectic. That's what they do. Even with this smart grid, I was talking to someone earlier today. You look at this smart grid, how they're bringing it online under the guise of convenience. They do it by making everything so inconvenient for you to begin with. You notice someone was telling me in the car on the way here that the train cars, you've got to use your mobile phone apparently to travel on the train here now. You've got to log on or something and then log off when you get off the train. And if you get to log off, your account gets drained. They do this. I mean, they could just have you pay for it and you get to the destination and they know where you're going and they just take that bit out. But they leave it so that it drains your account. So you'll welcome this whole smart grid. Oh, it's all smart now. I just got to walk in and walk off. It just detects me. It's all good. I save money. They create the problem so that you will ask for the solution. Yeah, the smart grid's going to save me all this money. It's going to save me having to remember to log off and all this sort of stuff. You know, when we arrived at the airport in Houston last year, 4 aircraft arrived at the airport at one time, like 1,200 people, and they got 16 counters there for your passports. 2 of them are open. 2.5 hours it took us to get through, get our passports stamped. Meanwhile, over on the side here, you've got the workers starting all the retinal scanners and building all this stuff here so you can see the convenience that they're bringing for you. But they make it inconvenient just so you want the convenience. That's how they do it. And everything government does is a scam. Government is not your friend. They're not your friend. And when you get in a situation where you need help, they'll give you some help. Not a problem. It's not always the help that you're looking for, though. It's really not. It's usually the help that benefits them. And what's happened, they don't talk about anything. None of these governments talk about anything real. They don't tell you what's really going on with the war on terror. How many politicians do you know really talk about that, what's going on? That ISIS is just a mercenary army funded by the Clinton Foundation and DynCorp in Israel. They're destroying the Middle East for greater Israel. How many people tell you that? How many politicians mention that? How many politicians talk about 9/11? You know, all we do is we wage wars for this to protect us, to save the world, and look what we do to the world. Look what we do to the world, and people wonder why it goes on. People wonder why it just never stops. No matter what we do, the wars never stop. And the reason it doesn't stop is this, because of the human harvest that happens in the war. We saw all this exposed by George Webb. Who looked at George Webb's work on YouTube? The expose he did of the Clinton emails. He did some great work with that, but you've got to watch what George does as well, because George is Mossad. George has really funneled all the attention away from Israel and what's going on there. And he's put it all on the Clinton Foundation and DynCorp and these Swan brothers or something. It's all misdirection. I mean, a lot of it is true, but a lot of it is misdirection as well. Something he doesn't talk about is this bit here. The Promise software and the Palantir software. He talks about this, how it manages all the rat lines. He doesn't tell you where it comes from. The Promise software was a software that was a backdoor software they put into all sorts of programs. The Promise software was what was used to run the 9/11 attacks. They put the backdoors into all the windows, in all the computers, so they could put the blips on the screens and all the stuff they did on 9/11. The company that kind of started that kind of just phased out and went into, just disappeared. But that all morphed into the Palantir software. And the Palantir software monitors everything, monitors all communication. That's what is being used to monitor everything for the smart grid. And that's all run by Israel. all run by Israel through an operation called Operation Talpiot, which is a spy program. Israel is basically breaking the domestic spying laws of every single country on earth. It's accessing all data that everybody creates, all companies that create data programs. Israel's got spyware in there, or it's got an operative in the company that channels that back to Israel, which is why they get all the technology first. They create all the systems, all the surveillance systems. If you want a good security company to look after your company, you get an Israeli company because they'll look after it best because they've got the best software and all the best stuff. But they also put a back door in there so they can run the company. That's the way they do it, and they can steal everything the company's doing. This is what's going on with the Palantir software. But most of the wars are run because of the human trafficking that you get from wars. That's why we never see anything about it. I think some people touched on that today. You had a speaker earlier talking about 5G and another speaker talking about the global pedophile ring, I think. And this global pedophile ring is real. It's totally real, and everybody is involved in it. We saw with Jimmy Savile, how many people are involved in it, the Royals, everybody. There's so many high-level people that are involved in this. And the brownstone operations is how they get people. This is why we never get anywhere. When we're trying to prosecute people, if you had a problem with a politician here and you try to prosecute them and get any real justice for them, you find that the judges and the heads of the police and the heads of all these major key points are all compromised because they've all been compromised in brownstone situations. It's really easy to do this to people. We live in a very sexually repressed society. We do. It's all very prim and proper. You can't think dirty thoughts. You can't do this. You can't do that. And so it's very, very easy to trap people with sexuality, trap them into, go and get them drunk, get a young prostitute who's underage, film them with them, and that's it. You've got them. Then they're in your pocket. They'll do anything you want. And the first thing you get them to do is to get the high-level people down the chain and start compromising them. So you end up, everybody's compromised, so we never get anywhere. It's really important to understand this. And when we're looking at the world, what do we get from the world? We don't get any of this. We don't get any of this stuff addressed. All we get is war rhetoric. We get rubbish from these people. This is all Trump's done since he got to office, is stomp the war drums and bang the war drums like every other president. All under the guise of helping the people, of course. And all he's done is completely capitulate to Israel. No matter what he does, no matter what the truthers think he is in America, and it's really important to bring America into the equation because America is the military machine that's running this whole show. Whether it's run by the Vatican or whether it's run by, American interests or Jewish interests or British interests or European interests or whatever, you can go down any rabbit hole you want. But looking at what the mechanism is, it's the military machine that's carrying out all this mayhem. A lot of it is being run by Israel for the Greater Israel Project, and that's all Trump's done is capitulate to Israel since he took office. Of course, Israel needs all this help. Tel Aviv, it's under such a threat. Look at the place. Who'd want to live there? And it's threatened by Gaza Strip, of course. Gaza Strip is such a threat to Israel, and it has to be. They have to take this action against Gaza Strip, of course. These are Palestinians going to work, and of course they have to do it because they're all terrorists. Bibi Netanyahu will tell you that every baby born in Gaza is a terrorist, and it's just completely out of balance anyway. But they need all the help. But, of course, they need the help against the Palestinians because the Palestinians are all trained to hate the Israelis, even though we see these pictures of Israeli kids being trained to use heavy automatic weapons and everything like that. So we've tried to address this issue for years. I've tried to address this issue for five or 6 years to let people know what's going on in Palestine and the key that it has to basically save the world. Save Gaza, save the world. I put out a video. Who saw that a couple of years ago? I put out a short video called Save Gaza, Save the World. Because Gaza Strip, what's going on in Gaza Strip is a war crime. It's a breach of Article 33 of the Geneva Convention. It's an international war crime. Just the fact that it exists. Doesn't matter whether you support Israel, whether you support Palestine, doesn't matter what side you're on. It's a war crime. It's an open war crime being supported by thousands upon thousands of Western politicians. I guarantee the Prime Minister, President, whoever it is in this country is supporting Israel. He's enacting legislation you guys don't like. How's that legislation valid when he's guilty of war crimes under his own legislation? This is an interesting loophole that people don't seem to look at. That's why I try to use Gaza Strip a lot to let people know what's going on. But nobody's interested. You try to tell people this stuff. You try to tell the kids. They're kind of busy doing other things. Most people are busy doing other things these days, I've found. Of course, they do go out and play sometimes. They do get out and they do get around and play outside. Sometimes they even take their pets for a walk. And that's good as well. But what's going on with this is this smart grid and this whole system. Everyone's so intent in looking at their mobile phones and everything that they do, that they're not noticing what's going on around them. And one day they're going to look up and they're going to notice that there's eyes everywhere and there's ears everywhere, and the world is not the way they thought it was. And they've been too busy being distracted with all this stuff. The banging of the war drums. North Korea being the big threat. North Korea is such a threat, isn't it? North Korea is going to attack the United States. Of course it is. What a joke. What a joke. This is all to create posturing against China. The stuff that James was talking about. Where's James? He's probably here. The stuff he was talking about with China, this is all related. It's all part of the same theatre. It's all part of the same play. But will it even happen? Will it even happen? That's the question. Now, what happens when countries go to war? You notice that? What happens when the countries go to war? If Donald Trump's got a problem with the government of China and the two countries are going to go to war, why don't they go and bomb the capital of China, the government buildings, and why doesn't China come and bomb Washington, D.C., the Pentagon and the White House and all this sort of stuff? They don't do that. They go and bomb all the people. The governments have got a problem, so we kill all the people, and then we work it out. Because they all drink together, they all plan it. Who's going to be the bad guy this week? Who's going to be the good guy this week? It's all one big charade. The whole thing's a charade. And we just sit there and we think everything's great, everything's going really well, not a problem, but there's all this shit going on in the background that we're not paying attention to. There really is. And so much of this is theatre. And I've gone down so many rabbit holes in the last few years, and I've tried to figure out what's going on. I've found so many people to point the finger at. But you get to the point that no matter who you point the finger at, nothing ever changes, nothing ever works. There's no mechanism we can put in place, no legal mechanism we can put in place to change things. And even if we do, even if we were to arrest every politician in the Western world, the entire cacostocracy, underneath it is this whole grid being rolled out, the whole smart grid, the whole 5G grid, all the stuff that you've heard about earlier today. And the 5G grid, the smart grid, is the end game. It really is. Where they're going with all this is the end game. And we're not going to stop the wars by protesting in the street and doing all these things we're doing. We've got to really start indulging in right behaviour ourselves and simply not going along with any of this. And we've really got to think about how we're being led. We really do. We've got to think about all of this stuff and think about how we're being played, because like Orwell said, the war is not meant to be one, it's meant to be continuous. It's always meant to be continuous. And like I said, what it's about really is a human harvest. The human harvest that's coming out of these wars is absolutely phenomenal. It really is. Just in Syria, 15,000 children in 6 years. 15,000 kids have had their organs harvested in Syria in the last 15 years. Because you think about it, you go into a war zone, you go into Syria, and there's a village there. You're going to bomb this village and take over the country. You want to secure the village. Well, what are you going to do with the people? Obviously, the men may be a threat, so you grab them, you send them off to work in work camps, salt mines, whatever. If they won't work, kill them, harvest their organs. You get the women, you take them, you put them in these brothels to run all the mines and all that sort of stuff. They set them up as sewing houses and seamstress houses, but they're just brothels. And if they won't work, well, you harvest their organs. Once they're burnt out, harvest their organs. Get the kids, they sell them to rich Arabs or send them down to Haiti to be processed and sent up to pedophiles in the United States or Europe or whatever. It's a resource. It's a valuable resource. People are the first resource in war. That's what they do. This is a Syrian kid found in a dumpster. And it's just it's rampant. This is Malaysian kids. And this is why. This is why. You look at the value of all this. Look at the value of your kidneys, $262,000 for your kidneys. Well, I'm going to kill you if I can harvest your kidneys. I can get 262 grand for your kidneys, 200 grand for your lungs, 157 grand for your liver, 119K for your heart. Your corneas in your eyes, $15,000. That's not bad. That's not a bad profit. Your bone marrow, $23,000 a gram for your bone marrow. And I can harvest that from you 2 weeks after you're dead. That's pretty good. That's about $43 million for a healthy person. Why are all the wars in the Middle East? They don't drink. Good, healthy organs in the Middle East. No alcohol in the Middle East. Good source of healthy organs for the United States, for European aristocracy and all this sort of stuff. How many people have bone marrow transplants? Where's all the bone marrow come from? It comes from war zones. This is why the wars are meant to be continuous. That's what they do. Wars are meant to be continuous. Never forget. In the 20th century, 262 million people killed by their own governments. The leading cause of death in the 20th century, apart from probably heart disease, well, you could probably attribute that to government as well because of the shit they feed the people. So, it's all part and parcel of the same thing. 262 million people killed by their own governments. And that's not to mention people killed in war zones and organs that are harvested the way I've just been talking. This is what's going on in the world. This is why we don't see any fix to this problem. Because we just comply with all this. We just go along with it. We pay protection money to the governments. We pay our taxes. We do all this stuff. Yes, please leave me alone. It's all good. Yeah, go have that war over there. Just leave me alone. I'm a good boy here. Have your hand out. It's protection money. It's racketeering. Governments are racketeering. That's what they do. So if you really want to look at Trump, basically Trump's full of shit. He's dragging America down and he's dragging the whole world down with him. And that's the plan. And it's always been the plan. Sorry for swearing, but that's the way it is. So what's going on underneath all this? While all this theatre's going on, like I said, we've got all of these issues to look at. But so much of it is just theatre. We can't fix these problems by addressing them in the way that we are. We can't fix war by marching in the street. We can't fix any of these problems by doing that. We can only fix these problems by withdrawing support from our governments and realising what they are. But even if we do that, even if we withdraw support from them, like I said, underneath is this whole smart grid. And what's the smart grid really about? That's the question, because that's what's coming online, the smart grid. And it's being sold to the world as convenience, like I said. All this stuff, you notice everything's being linked together. All your laptops, all your iPhones, everything's being linked together. Your computers are talking to you now, and it's presented to the world as a massive entertainment system. We've got Cortana on the Windows computer. We've got Siri on the iPad, on the iPhones. Someone recently bought an iPhone, and they decided they wouldn't switch Siri on, or on their new iMac or whatever laptop. And they decided they wouldn't switch Siri on. They didn't like it because they didn't like the idea of being listened to all the time. So they'd never activated Siri. And they were sitting there having a conversation with their husband, planning a trip to South America. And while they're talking about planning it, this little text has come up on the screen. I can help you with that if you activate me. It was Siri. Was listening to him anyway. And she went, oh my God, my life is over. My privacy is over. And I didn't even know, But that's the thing. They're listening to you all the time. I had some people in LA. A couple of girls were out talking about massage oil, creating your own massage oil. When she got home to her laptop, she punched up Google, got onto Facebook, and there's all these ads on Facebook for how to make massage oil. From her phone listening to her. You're getting this? This is all connected. This is how they're doing. So they're listening to everything you do, everything you say. That's what all this technology is about. They can listen to you through your fridge now. A new law just passed in Australia last week giving the federal police the ability to turn on any smart devices for surveillance if they need to. And they got someone by listening through their fridge. You buy a smart fridge and it's got a microphone in it, and the police are listening to you anytime they were having a conversation in your kitchen with your wife. Oh, what's John up to today? Got a bit of a black mark against his name. What's he talking about over his morning breakfast conversations? Oh, look, he just said something. We got him. And they got it. They got the conversation. They got it recorded. All legal, all allowed to. That's how they're doing it. Like three words. Did anyone watch that Snowden documentary that Oliver Stone put out? Snowden? I don't really agree with a lot of Snowden. I don't know whether to trust him or not, but that was a good documentary. There was parts of that showed how the NSA runs the surveillance system. All they've got to do is type in three words, and they can go, okay, well, what's this guy up to? Let's look at him. He's married to this lady, and her brother is married to this girl, and this girl's brother is a junkie. Let's turn on his video camera and microphone and get some dirt on him and bring it back to mess you up. This is what they do, and they can do it with three key words. Anybody they choose, write in three key words, and they can turn on their laptop microphone, their laptop camera, even if it's turned off. If your laptop's open, they can turn on your camera and microphone and surveil you, listen. Your phone, your television set, if you've got a set-top box, all that stuff, they can turn it all on, your fridge, everything. Three key words, that's all they need, anybody in the world. And it all goes through that Palantir software. Cortana, here to help you. No problem. Answer all your questions. Did you see that, was it Ule talking the other day, said the Google search, or was it James, the Google search, they're getting more than one result. Not good. They don't want you to get more than one result with anything that you search for. So, total lockdown, total surveillance. You go and search stuff now. Someone was saying, it might have been Frank saying, you go and search for Charleston hoax, you get no results. No results on Google. Charleston hoax. It's a hoax. You get no results for the search. And all this, the Internet of Things. The Internet of Things, folks, everything talking to everything else. You know, this is all being presented to us as something great. Like you said, you better walk into a store, you don't need any money, you can just walk in, pick up whatever you want from the shelf and walk out, it all gets taken out. What this is going to do is lead to a point where you're paying for every single aspect of your life, every single action you perform. Because it'll be to the point where you can turn on your tap, watch a credit drop. You know, turn on your toaster, watch a credit drop. Turn on your TV, watch a credit drop. You ever see that show Black Mirror on TV? Anyone ever watch that TV show? There was one episode, I've only seen 2 episodes of it, but there was one episode where they were just paying for everything and they spent their whole life riding these bikes, just building up credits so they could pay for every single aspect of their life. That's kind of where we're heading with this Internet of Things. And it's a surveillance grid and it's a control grid. And if you're someone who's doing like a bit of massage for someone or doing a tarot reading for someone, a little bit of stuff on the side that you do, selling a little bit of weed, whatever, the only way you're going to be able to have that transfer of cash is digitally. So the government will get a tax on everything. It knows every transaction everybody's performing, and it's going to want to know why. Why you're doing all of this stuff. And in this world that is being created, there will only be 2 types of people that are in that world, classed by the machine that runs it, and there will be desirables and undesirables. And that's the way we're going. And it's all being sold to the world as this beautiful thing, transhumanism, enhancement, all that sort of stuff. But, what really is it? What really is it? What really is this smart grid that we're being set up for? It's not just connectivity. It's not just being able to do everything at the touch of a button. A lot of people think it's leading towards the end of the human race, and the human race is in decline. And we are very much in decline as well. I don't know if anybody here heard a recent radio show I did where I talked about the sperm count. The male sperm count has dropped about 50% in the last 50 years, and it's continuing to decline. This is through all the plastics and phthalates and all the stuff that's in our food, all the stuff that we're consuming. Plastic bottles, plastic water, water bottles, all this sort of stuff. Even dishwashing liquid, the stuff that's in the dishwashing liquid, the stuff that's in hair conditioners, the stuff that your couch is made of, the stuff that your carpet's made of, the paint on your walls. It all contains phthalates, it all contains synthetic estrogens. And it's changing everything. There's a lake in Canada where the runoff from people's drains, dishwashing liquid mainly, and hair conditioners and shampoos is going into this lake. And it's changed the sexual makeup of the lake. The alligators born there now used to be 50% female, 50% male, roughly. Now they're about 90% female and 10% male. And all the males have been born with stunted genitalia. So they're just basically being led into a point where we can't breed. And again, problem, reaction, solution. Why would they be doing this? Is it just to wipe out the human race, or is to create a reason for them coming in to help us to fix these problems? Because they always want to help us, don't they? Well, it turns out that they do want to help us. They're working on it now. Now they can create artificial sperm using stem cells in the lab. Just because people are having trouble with the sperm count. The sperm count's dropping, so we need to be able to create artificial sperm because we're trying to help. That's what it's all about. And they're also working on creating artificial wombs. So the ladies won't have to lose their figures. We can get this artificial sperm, just harvest a few eggs and put them in there. And I always thought that was what they were going to do. They'd just be able to harvest eggs, use the artificial sperm, create the humans that they want. But now they're able to create artificial eggs as well. They create artificial eggs and artificial sperm from stem cells, so it eliminates the need for humans. And it says that they're doing this through genetically engineered stem cells. So it's all about genetic engineering. Of course, like I said, they're doing it to help us. To help us. It's going to make everything great. It'll make your heart warm. They're really good, the government. They really want to help us. Of course, it couldn't be that they're doing anything to hinder us to begin with. Couldn't be any of the problems that are being caused by the environment that they're putting us into. None of that, no. It's all just a matter of course. And they're really promoting this whole transhumanist agenda as well. When I was travelling between Hawaii and the United States, I saw this National Geographic magazine in the airport. I took a photo of it. Very interesting cover, leading us towards transhumanism. And it's got at the top there, climate facts. Climate facts. Get the facts from them, folks, Climate change. And you look at this. You look at the whole thing. You notice how everybody's got one eye showing. Interesting, huh? Except for the monkey at the back. He's kind of looking around the corner going, what the fuck are you people doing? And this guy, the second guy, he's sort of going, oh my God, we've lost it. And here we go to this brave new future, And where are they going? Beyond human. Beyond human. What does that really mean? It's all sold to us as being something really great. You know, technological versus natural selection, do-it-yourself evolution. You know, science fiction becomes reality. And really selling it and promoting it to people, this is great, isn't it? When I met Cyborg Neil Harbison in Barcelona, he looked like any local hipster except for the black antenna arching impressively from the back of his head, from the back of his skull. It wasn't like, oh my God, this guy's got an antenna sticking out of his head. It's like, I might get one of those. That's a nice trendy fashion accessory, arching impressively from the back of my skull. You know, so it's just a scam, folks. It's a scam. Now, I mentioned in my film Transformation that this whole transhumanist agenda is being pushed through vaccines and chemtrails and all of this stuff. We've been kind of this whole transhumanist thing. You know, a lot of people look at it and they think it's going to be eye patches and little add-ons and the Borg, and we're going to get things like that guy had in his arm that I showed you before. But really, what if we're being changed from the inside out through vaccines and chemtrails and the food and all the stuff that they're feeding us? There's actually a doctor now who's saying the same thing, that this is what vaccines are for. Vaccines, there was a very, very interesting talk that I saw actually at AV8 in England. When the video of AV8 comes out online, look up a talk by this guy, Dr. Graham Downing. It was a fantastic talk. He's a medical doctor, and he basically gives you the figures to show what they're doing with vaccines, how they're basically setting this environment up for transhumanism, and what they're also doing is weaponizing common diseases through vaccines. For example, if I give you a meningococcal vaccine, I'll give you that vaccine, and that's tailored for one particular strain of meningococcal, and you will develop antibodies for that type of meningococcal. But if a hybrid strain comes along, a different strain that may have been manufactured and put out there, your body is going to start producing antibodies for the wrong strain of meningococcal, and that meningococcal is going to kill you because your body is incapable of producing the correct antibodies. That's what vaccines actually do. They are designed specifically for one particular strain of an illness, which effectively weaponizes all other hybrid strains of that illness. And he gave the figures. He showed how it all works. He showed you got to put 162 children in danger to save the life of one through vaccination. It's just completely off the charts what they're doing. They put some really good figures out there to show what they're doing, but this is how they're doing it, folks. They're basically manipulating us from the inside out and bring us into this 5G grid genetically. See, it's going to start off with this Internet of Things and all this stuff, and the waves that we're in subject to. Now, did the guy earlier tell you about the millimeter waves and what they can do? This is basically military technology. These millimeter waves that the 5G grid operates on. Not only does it give us lightning fast communication, but underneath that is an active denial system. It's a weapons system. It's what they use for microwave cannons. It's what they use for all of these military things that they do, all sorts of military applications for 5G. So underlying that is this weapons system. And because this is what it's going to be, the 5G grid is going to be this weapons system, what are they really doing with it? Is this really to help us, or is it to just tie us up in this system? To tie us up? Because how's it all going to tie in with the whole transhumanist agenda? What's it really all about? Is it really just about 5G? The radio waves and the wireless waves that we are swimming in now, that everybody takes for granted, are doing an incredible amount of damage. And when they go up to 5G, they're not going to just be doing more damage, but it opens up the possibility of all sorts of interaction with this organism from the outside field. It really does. Anyone looked at these photos that someone put out recently? This is a mobile phone sitting on the floor there beneath a step ladder. And that's the electromagnetic field that it sets up around the step ladder. That's just from being on your mobile phone. This is a person walking up the stairs carrying a mobile phone. They've kind of edited the person out of the picture. This is someone sitting, speaking on their mobile phone. So these waves are all around us, and this is going to be absolutely intensified when this 5G grid comes online. And you look at these things, the D-Wave computers, the quantum computers. Anyone looked into D-Wave computers? Very, very interesting stuff. These computers, they're building these computers out of DNA. They're using DNA to store the data on, because DNA is you can put far more information on DNA than you can on silicon, of course. So they're creating DNA-based computers. And these are basically using GNA, which is DNA's chemical cousin. It's a nano DNA that's created, artificial DNA. And the DNA that they're creating the computers out of is 3-strand DNA. That's very interesting. 3-strand DNA. They're really bizarre looking things too. This is a quantum computer. Try putting a hard drive in that. Interesting. And they're really interesting. They come in all shapes and sizes. And they're just bizarre looking things. And they seem to sort of operate almost on a fractal type of manner. I mean, it doesn't even look like a computer to me, but that's a quantum computer. If you don't understand quantum computing, quantum computers are said to access the computers that exist in parallel realities, parallel universes, and get information from them. So they've got the processing power of all of their counterparts in different realities. And when they turn them on, they work, which is really interesting. So when you start looking at parallel dimensions and where we're all going with all this and where all this technology comes from, it's very interesting. I've often questioned where technology comes from. Was some sort of a wormhole open? Does AI already control some reality and somehow it got in here and infected us? Is that what happened when they turned CERN on, when they opened that wormhole? Is that where the tech came from? Because we've made incredible leaps in technology. I don't know how the hell they're figuring this stuff out. But 3-strand DNA is what they're basing these computers on. So when you look at some of the stuff that's going on with us, is that what they're doing with us? Are they linking us up to these quantum computers through 3-strand DNA? Why are these quantum computers got 3 strands of DNA? Why is it DNA? Is that what they're doing? This whole 3-strand thing, is that what it's really all about? And I suggest, and other people suggest, and even the doctor that I was talking about as well is suggesting that what they're actually doing is hooking us up without us knowing it. And when you look at some of the things they do, some of the radiation that we're subject to, like airport scanners and mobile phones and televisions, microwaves, all of these things break our DNA. It's really interesting, like specifically airport scanners, the airport that you go through when you do the whatever, they break your DNA chain. So is this just to affect our health, or is it why is it a specific frequency that's designed to break our DNA? I think it's really interesting. So if you had a 3rd strand of DNA in a computer, if you had a 3-strand DNA quantum computer and you wanted to hook this computer, this biological organism, which is all electrical, I mean, everything you experience is electrical. You touch this, that's an electrical signal that goes to my brain that tells me I'm touching the bench. Everything we experience is electromagnetic, all the experiences we have. So it's very easy to interfere with that. They can set carrier signals in there, the voice of God. Ever remember anyone hear of the voice of God? Remember in Iraq in the first Gulf War, that column of troops that just got burnt out, they just all gave up their weapons and marched to the front and wanted to give up, and they just firebombed them all? That was the voice of God. That was the technology they put in their heads. They all had this voice in their heads of Allah telling them to put down their weapons and go to the front. And they did. The voice of God. David Shayler. Everyone know David Shayler? The guy who he exposed the 7/7 bombings and then suddenly thought he was Jesus Christ and started wearing drag. Very strange, a transvestite Jesus Christ. Suddenly after exposing these London bombings, he was staying in an apartment in England. And after staying in this apartment, suddenly he thought he was Jesus and started wearing women's clothing. And when he moved out of the apartment, there was a woman living in the apartment below him who said, "Oh my God, I'm glad he's moved out," she said to her neighbours, because now the voices have stopped. Because she had a voice in her head every night telling her she was Jesus, going all night in her head. So they must have been hitting her with a satellite or something, whatever. Flat Earthers, satellites don't exist, sorry to offend anyone, whatever. But however, they had this signal that was bombed down on his apartment, putting this voice in his head, and the woman below was hearing it as well, and it stopped when he moved out. And then suddenly he thinks he's Jesus Christ. This is how they do it. So they're able to interact with this vessel. They're able to do it. And if they wanted to hook us up to the smart grid, and they wanted to put a 3rd strand of DNA in our body without us knowing it, would they not need to break our DNA chain in order to create points for this 3rd strand to bond onto? Just putting it out there. It's a possibility. And what's this stuff we're finding in everybody? Morgellons. What is Morgellons? What is the purpose of Morgellons? And Morgellons is in everybody. It's in everybody. The people that are exhibiting signs of Morgellons are people who are rejecting the Morgellons, are rejecting the nanotech that's in them. But the nanotech's in everybody. We're breathing it. It's in the chemtrails. It's in the food. They did studies in Australia. There was a company who approached the Australian Food and Drug Administration and asked them why we are finding nanotech in popular sauces, dressings, cereals, sweets, lollies, all sorts of stuff. So if it's in Australian food, It's in Danish food, it's in American food, it's in everybody's food. There's nanotech in the food, nanotech being sprayed in the skies, and you're getting Morgellons. This is cultured from urine. You can get urine from anybody, get a blood cell from anybody, and you can put it in a petri dish and you can culture Morgellons fibres from it. Anybody. It's in everybody. The people that are exhibiting signs of it are like the canary in the coal mine. That's what's going on. So where are they going with this? They're hooking us up to this mainframe and without us knowing it, because that's where it appears to be going. And there was a study also put out recently, this whole AI thing that they're bringing online to control all this. And AI as well. A lot of people don't understand what AI is. A lot of people think of AI, artificial intelligence, okay? People will look at it and they'll think, well, AI is promised highly and it's delivering poorly, because when people think of AI, they think of, I'm just going to bring this stool around and talk to you for a while, folks. When people think of AI, they think of something that looks like me or looks like you and can stand here and interact the way we are. This is artificial intelligence. They expect a robot like Terminator or whatever, something that is human-like and we can have a conversation with. And we're not getting that, so we think, well, AI really isn't a threat. It's not really doing what we thought it would do. But they don't understand what gives me the ability to sit here and talk to you like this is because my body is autonomic. My body is fully autonomic. If I had this vessel that I'm controlling here, that I inhabit, because this is where I live in this vessel. This is what I consider life to be. This is just what I'm walking around in. To be able to talk to you, if I had to look after the workings of this vessel, if I had to sit here and think, oh, you've got to pump blood there, move this bone, heartbeat, breathe, blink the eye, you know, you're going to be sitting here just going, yeah, I'm working. You're not going to be able to do anything. You have to be autonomic in order to have any form of real consciousness. And what we are doing with the internet is we are creating an autonomic internet. So there's a differentiation between artificial intelligence and autonomic intelligence. Because you can't have artificial intelligence, you can't have... And why are we even calling it artificial intelligence? Because what it is it's a virtual world, so really it's virtual life. It's virtual life, it's not artificial intelligence. This is our left brain, intellectual, mono-thinking education that's even making us think this way. It's autonomic virtual life that we are creating, and it needs to become fully autonomic before it will have any semblance of what we perceive to be life or intelligence. We would call it intelligence, but really it's life. You can think of the internet now as being like a child that's learning, but we're creating an autonomic system for it. With the 5G grid, for example, because the 5G grid is an active denial system, underneath everything, underneath all the communication, everything is the ability for this to be turned into a microwave system, an active denial system like any microwave cannon. You put it around Copenhagen, everyone's got 5G, bang, suddenly you're at war with France, France switches on your 5G, bang, microwaves Copenhagen, bye. Can't have that happening. So you have to create a protection around that system. If you're going to bring 5G online, you've got to create a protection around it. And this study that they're doing, they want to do this. They've got this 15-year plan. And it says here, it's the nanotechnology-inspired grand challenge. Why would they even put this out? Why would they even be talking about nanotechnology-inspired grand challenge? So you can Google that paper. You'll find a PDF of that available freely online. You can go to my website, thecrowhouse.com. You'll find it there. And scroll down the home page. I've got a whole bunch of essential reading. This is part of it. But for this 5G grid to be there and for this active denial system to be there, you've got to automate the response to hacking. You've got to make it fully autonomic to make it safe for the people. Otherwise, France will come in and microwave Copenhagen. Whatever, China will microwave New York. That's the threat, isn't it? It's China and America. Let me get it right here. You've got to keep up with the theatrics, But you can't have that. So you've got to put in a system which can protect itself. So it needs to be autonomic. It needs to be artificial intelligence running it. Because you can't have that human error. You can't have that human delay. If France is going to microwave Copenhagen, you don't have time for someone to see the signal and go and push the button. By the time they do that, the city's already microwaved. You've got to have it fully automatically responsive. So you need to automate the response. You need to give it lethal autonomy. And they're talking about that as well. If you look at some of these things through here, and like I said, it's a national priority. And it says here, down the bottom here, achieve fully autonomous capability for sophisticated attack scenarios. Okay? So they've got to make it completely self-protective, like an immune system. The internet is basically getting its own immune system, and we're building it. We're giving it its own immune system. While we're tinkering around here trying to create a robot that looks like us and thinks like us, we're giving the internet its own immune system. And what is the internet? The internet is a virtual life of its own. It really is. That may be a strange thing for people to think about. Could life inhabit a body? Could something that was simply a series of mainframes and simply a series of computers and hard drives and this energy actually be a life of some sort, like a child? And could everybody who's plugging in and interacting with the internet be like a neural node in the brain of this child that is learning from everybody who's doing all this stuff? So that's kind of a way of looking at it. Where the internet's really going. It's becoming autonomic itself, and when it becomes autonomic, that virtual life will come about by default. We're not really looking at it, and they're rolling it out really quickly. These are the new poles that they're bringing in Australia. Interesting stuff. Looks like something out of film Equilibrium or something like that. That's what it looks like, and really, this is where they're going, folks. This is where they're going. It's not being done to help us. But an autonomic system, it has to be autonomic in order to have intelligence of its own. And what they're doing with the internet, with this whole smart grid, the whole AI, they're setting it so it runs everything. So it's going to control every single aspect of our lives. And it's basing everything on economics, on economic value. So every aspect of your life and how it measures you will be according to your economic worth, because you have to pay for every action that you do. Pay for everything. So it measures everybody according to economics. And like I said, you'll be desirable or you'll be undesirable. Either you participate in the system or you don't participate in the system. And if you don't participate in the system, well, they can just do whatever they want. They can do whatever they want with this grid, because you can target individuals with the 5G grid as well. You can target certain individuals and you can disable them while the police arrive, see what people are carrying, see if they're carrying money, see if they're carrying whatever. Now, it's an interesting thing. It's an interesting thing where they're going with it. And I've been looking at all this recently. I'll just put that up there again. And realise that we're given all this stuff to look at all the time. And all of these ideas and all these things that we think are going to work, and we're just sitting there wondering what the hell's going on the whole time. And all of it has been a distraction. All of this stuff has been so that we can have this 5G grid rolled out. Because we're given all these problems that we can never solve. We struggle so hard to solve every problem, but we're just sitting there continually trying to lift humanity out of the abyss and get somewhere. And all we get is the same thing. It's just the same thing. The same life over and over again. We don't get any satisfaction from dealing with this system. We've got to realise that the only way we're going to get out of this is to disconnect from it. And look, the technology, there's nothing wrong with technology. It's just where they're taking it. It's just what they've done with the technology and where they've led us. There's nothing wrong with technology at all. It's just who controls the technology. The smart grid could be really good. It could be great. It could be fantastic for us. But the way it's being done is not, because it's going to be run economically, and it's being run by a cacostocracy who really doesn't give a shit about anybody except themselves. And that's basically the truth of the matter. They don't. This is a people farm. We're living in a people farm, ladies and gentlemen. All the resources for this farm are being mined. And you think about it, this whole money system, how do you run a perfect people farm? You get them involved in this whole usurious monetary system, which provides scarcity. That's its whole purpose. The usurious monetary system provides scarcity. It creates the need for efficiency, the need for automation. You create a society where people are given different social standards to measure themselves up to. But in order to do anything, they have to work. They have to collect paper. In order to collect this paper, they have to exploit their environment. That's what you do. It's a perfect people farm. Control the history, control what people think about each other, pit them against each other, divide and conquer. That's the whole motto. That's how it all works. But we could disconnect from it all. I finish every radio show with In Lakesh, the words In Lakesh. I am another yourself. And if we were to apply that approach to the world, we'd change the world. We would. We'd change it in a day if we stopped tolerating wrong behaviour, because all of this happens because we tolerate it. We go along with it all. We could stop supporting the government, stop supporting the wars, stop supporting the smart grid. Because the smart grid is being rolled out underneath everything, and it's going to come online, and people are going to wonder what happened. And it's coming online very, very quickly. Very quickly. We've got it's being rolled out this year. They're starting to roll out the smart grid this year. They expect to have it completely rolled out by 2020, and they expect to hand it over to AI by 2025, according to that paper. The Nanotechnology Grand Challenge. They want to hand it over to AI by 2025. They have it fully autonomic. And when you look at it, anyone heard of Strong AI? Strong AI, you can look up on MIT website, look up bots, whatever. You'll find Strong AI. What is Strong AI? Strong AI is fully autonomic artificial intelligence. They tell you that's what they're working towards. They want the system to be fully autonomic. But when the system becomes fully autonomic, what happens then? What happens then? Once the system controls everything, once everything is automated and it's controlling all the flow of electricity, all the control of flow of food, the control of everything, it's all automated, everything's just, our society's looked after. Well, where's the jobs for everybody? If we're in this society where we've got to pay to be alive, not that anybody wants to work anyway, but if you've got to and you've got to collect credits in order to pay to be alive, where's the jobs if everything's automated? There might be really menial jobs in mines or whatever, but where's the jobs for the people? There won't be any. We'll become like the house cat, like Elon Musk said, the house cat for AI. But it's getting to the point now where it's being led somewhere even darker, because when it becomes fully autonomic and it controls all the flow of everything, we basically lose control of the internet at that point, and it dictates where we're going and what we do. And when you get a company that decides, well, hang on, we don't want a shipment flow to go there that day, we want it to go somewhere else, so we want to do something different, and they try to change it and the system won't let them, and they realise they've lost control of it, then they try to get into it and they try to regain control of the internet. And as soon as someone does try to regain control of the internet, then the internet protects itself, and it has control of the 5G system, and if it sees all humans as a threat, well, it'll just eliminate the threat. Simple as that. Won't be anything malicious in it, it'll just do it. You know, that's a worst case scenario, admittedly, but it's quite possible for that to happen, because we are giving this internet full autonomic capability, and we're doing it ourselves by our greed, by our need for convenience, by our fear of others, by our fear of all these countries coming and bombing us or whatever. And it's just governments. It's just governments colluding with each other. Like I said, when two governments go to war with each other, how come they don't go and bomb the government buildings? They go and bomb all the people. It's just a scam. The whole thing's a scam. You know, so this is where we're being led with this system. We're being led into a situation where we're going to be completely under the control of this system if we don't stop complying with it. You know, one of the best things you can do at the moment to slow it down is to shop with cash all the time. Never use credit cards. Shop with cash in the real world. I mean, if you're going to buy stuff online, buy stuff online. But when you're out in the real world shopping at supermarkets, if it's an automated supermarket that won't accept cash, don't shop there. Shop somewhere else. Now, I don't even travel with a credit card. This really messes people up, I tell you. You know, I've got a debit card. I can put money in there if I want to spend it, and if I've got to check into a hotel, I can show them my debit card, but there's no money in there. I can't pay for anything with it. If you want me to pay for something with it, fine, get me a laptop, I'll log onto the computer, I'll go onto the internet, I'll transfer some money in there, and I'll pay for it. But no, I can't access the internet with my smartphone because I don't own a smartphone. You know, I don't own a smartphone, I don't own a credit card, and I travel the world, and I take cash with me everywhere, and I shop with cash everywhere I go. It really messes people up, but I do it all the time, because you need to make a stand. And just shopping with cash will slow things down. There's also, with this smart grid, there's a group that's just put out a video called In Power, the In Power movement. And they've actually stopped smart meters in Hawaii, I believe. And what they've got is a mass liability action, where basically if someone comes to put a smart meter on your home, you can say, well, you need to sign this document because you are going to be liable for any damage caused to my home or my health or anything by the installation of this smart meter. You are going to be personally liable. And what's happening with this is that the guys are freaking out, they're ringing their bosses, and the bosses are coming down, and a lot of the bosses are actually quitting their jobs over this, because otherwise they're going to be prosecuted as being liable. So this is a good movement, and it's using the system against itself. Again, you're not going to get any legal remedy from anything in this system, because the legal system is designed to tie us up in red tape, but all this sort of stuff slows it down, and it all creates public awareness of what this 5G grid is really going to do. You know, we could have good communication system that isn't 5G, isn't millimetre waves, it doesn't need to be what it is, and it doesn't need to be an active denial system. It's the fact that underlying this is an active denial system. Why would any government that cares about its people put an active denial system in place, blanket across the whole country, if they really didn't want to use it against the people? I mean, seriously, you think these people care about us? They don't. Like I said, they were the leading cause of death in the last century. That's government, you know. We don't need government. We need anarchy. We need self-governance, and that might freak a lot of people out, but we need anarchy. You know, of course, it will be quite difficult to just go to an anarchist society right now because people simply aren't educated enough to look after themselves. But, you know, we need a transitional period. But if we can regain control of the education system and regain control of the governments, maybe we can get somewhere. But in order to do that, we first need to regain control of ourselves. We really do. People have got to stop being in fear, and we've got to stand up for ourselves. Everybody's got to stand up for themselves. Do whatever you can to wake the world up and to empower people with the knowledge that you're giving them. And that's what I'm doing here. I don't want to be here. I don't want to come here and speak to you people. I love you all, but I don't want to be here. I want to be in the forest playing guitar and smoking weed. I don't want to do this. Yeah. Someone said to me the other day, last time I was here, I was with a guy who said, "You've got to stop speaking about Israel so much, Max. It's really bad for your career." And I'm going, I have a career? Really? You know, well, your career as a filmmaker and public speaker. I'm going, I don't want to be a filmmaker or a public speaker. I want to go home, for God's sake. I don't want to do this. I want everyone to just stand up for themselves, because the government isn't this thing that can get you. It's just a building. It's just a building where guys just like you who do the same toiletries and have to wash themselves and, you know, wipe their ass in the morning. They go into these buildings and do this. You know, they're just people. They're not anything special. They're just people. You know, and they're actually your employees. And like I said, they're all war criminals anyway. Like you look at Gaza Strip, they're all war criminals. What makes any of their legislation valid? Anything they do to you, what makes any of it valid? None of it is valid. It's all rubbish. It's all mind games, mind control, the whole lot. Spells. It's spells. This guy can do this. Oh, it's the law. How is it the law? That guy in that suit over there, he wrote it down on a piece of paper. Oh, really? So now it's the law. We're going to let this guy come and destroy the world because you wrote down on a piece of paper that he can do it. What the hell is that? How do we ever let that happen, folks? Seriously, how do we let that happen? Am I running out of time, Frank? I have no idea what the time is or how I'm going. That's all good. So you know, we've got to really take stock of things. Like we're so distracted by everything. They just give us all this bullshit, all this stuff. Yeah, there's so much stuff to distract you with, everything. And then you go down all the rabbit holes trying to figure out what's going on, when really that's what we need. We need to embrace the warrior spirit, folks. Embrace the warrior spirit. Realize it's one man against the machine. It's you against the machine. Yourself. I can't save you. I can't lead you. No one can lead you to safety. No movement is going to do anything if we haven't changed what's in our hearts. And if we change what's in our hearts, everything has to change around us. You know, like I live my life in a state of giving. If you go to my website, there's nothing to buy on my website. There's no subscriber section. I've never run any fundraisers. You know, I don't sell anything. All the films I make, I give away for free. I wrote a book, gave it away for free. Could never afford to get it published. You know, I sell Cumbo. I serve Cumbo to people, frog venom. I travel around the world serving frog venom to people. I do it to people for free. Now, I could be making hundreds of dollars every treatment that I give people, but I do it all for free, and I allow them to give me what they can. And I could make 10 times as much as I make, but I always make enough to get to the next town and help the next people. And because I do that, everywhere I go, I've got family. Everywhere. I've got family. I could go to almost any country on earth and just stay with people who love having me there, and I love being there with them. They're my family everywhere I go, because I live my life in a state of giving. You know, I turn 60 next month. I've never voted. I've never paid taxes. I've never indulged in the system at all. At all. You know? And if you live your life in that way, it works. It just works. The world opens up for you. And the world is not this big, ugly, dangerous place that people think it is. It's a place full of beautiful people, really confused people, people who just want a better life and just want to be heard. Most people just want to be listened to, because they've never been listened to in their whole life. You know, I got a little thing that I do with people. You know, you could get people, you could even do it here if you want. We could have 10 minutes off. But you could, you pair up with the people. You get someone, you just ask them, write out this thing. You know, what would you most want to do in your life is blank. What is it about yourself that prevents you from doing this? And most people will start telling you about what they feel bad about themselves, the flaws they have in themselves. Well, I can't do this because I'm just, you know, I'm too this or I'm too that. And it's the bits that they dislike about themselves the most. And just by you listening to them listening to them actually being able to tell you this about themselves, because no one's ever fucking listened to them before. Just you being able to listen to them and them being able to tell you, it heals those blockages in people. And suddenly they realise that these blockages aren't there and they can go and do this. There wasn't really anything stopping them at all. It was all in their mind. But no one ever listened to them. They never had a chance to express themselves. And you should try it with people. Try it with a friend. Just try it sometimes. Do a little exercise and just write that down and get them to answer. And just listen to them for 10 minutes and don't interject. Because we do that all the time. You notice that? Someone comes and tells you a story, oh, such and such happened. Oh, yeah, well, when that happened to me, right? And we turn it into us, and suddenly it's about our story. And we tell them our story thinking we're going to heal them, when all they wanted to do was tell us their story. They just wanted someone to listen to them. And we never gave them a chance, you know. You can really make a lot of difference to the world by doing that for people, just listening to them. Like I said, folks, life is wisdom's dare. There's wisdom there, and everything they've done everything they can to squash us. They've done everything they can to destroy us. One of the things they've done to destroy us is this stuff. This stuff. I always like to bring this stuff up. Anyone research this stuff? I research this all the time. All the time. Every day I'm researching this plant. Heavily involved in my research I am. This is mankind's companion plant, folks. This is mankind's companion plant. When they outlawed this plant, everybody got sick. Around about 1930s, everybody got sick when they outlawed this plant. This balances your body. Just juice the leaves, juice the heads, juice the plant, drink it in your juices, have it in your salads. It's really good for you. It doesn't get you stoned when you eat it like that. But you can get the resin off the heads, make the oil, cure cancers. I've cured 15, 16 people of terminal cancers. Terminal. Oh no, I'm going to die. One guy, 6 months to live. Came to me with a pound of weed. Max saved me. I've got throat cancer. Give me 6 months to live. Given up everything. Tried the chemo. Tried this. Tried that. 6 months to live. Pound of weed. Cooked up into oil. Gave it to him. 3 months later, came back with a clean bill of health. Thank you, Max. Here's a bottle of Jack Daniels. What am I going to do with the Jack Daniels? Great stuff. I saved your throat, so you're trying to destroy my liver. Excellent, you know. But it was a nice thought, you know. It's still sitting on the shelf at home. But, 3 months and I cured throat cancer, terminal throat cancer. You know, I've cured pancreatic cancer. I've cured testicular cancer. I've seen a brain tumour reduce from the size of a golf ball to the size of a pea. I've seen an autistic child showing an 80% improvement in motor skills by consuming the oil of this plant. You know, they banned this and everybody started getting sick. And that's the fact of the matter. And it's mankind's companion plant. And I consider the outlawing of this plant to be a crime against humanity. So any politician that's still supporting the outlawing of this plant is simply not intelligent enough to hold the office that they're holding. Either that or they're corrupt and bought and paid for, you know. But it's an incredible plan. It's an incredible plan, and that could save the world as well. I mean, even the plastics that we're using that I mentioned before that are destroying all the sperm count, all these petroplastics and stuff that we're using, we could be making better quality plastics out of this that are actually really good. Henry Ford made a car in the 1950s out of plastic that he got from hemp, sisal and flaxseed, and you couldn't put a dent in this thing with a 10-pound sledgehammer, you know. And then you can take the hurd out of the stem and you can mix it with concrete and mix it with lime, and it petrifies. But the powdery hurd out of the centre of the stem, mix that with lime and it turns to stone overnight. Petrifies. That's amazing. This is a plant that petrifies. You can build your houses out of it. Build a house to put the car in that you build out of the plastic. And you can make the upholstery out of really nice hemp seeds. Then you can make nice clothing out of the hemp as well. And it's the best food you can eat. The seeds, the hemp seeds, it's a whole food. It's one of the only whole foods, if not the only whole food on the planet. You can actually live on hemp seed alone without anything else. It contains everything you need to survive. You can build your houses, build your clothing, build everything out of this plant. It grows in 3 months. Why did they ban that? It was also the basis of all medicines. All medicines, before they banned it, they used to use hemp tinctures as the basis for all medicines because it's a really easy vector. It's, you know, you've got a cannabinoid system in your body. It's there for a reason. What other plant do you have an endocrine system in your body for? Do you have an endo-rhubarb system, endo-potato system, endo-lettuce system, endo-meat system? And none of this stuff. You have an endocannabinoid system. Every animal with a spine has an endocannabinoid system because it's our companion plant. Absolute crime outlawing this plant, folks. You know, speak about that. But again, this is another issue. This is another issue. Understand that all your politicians are war criminals. Every politician in the Western world that's supporting the state of Israel is a war criminal. Why are you doing what they say? If law is supposed to be real, if we've got this stuff that people can write down on paper, if it's a paper-based reality like they tell us, they've got to do this because they wrote down on paper that it's law. Well, there's a piece of paper called the Fourth Geneva Convention that says you're a war criminal. So how is your law valid? Explain to me how your law is valid when you can be shown to be a war criminal under your own law. And you should be taken to the Hague and hung under your own law. Explain it to me. This is something that I noticed with the activist groups and the Palestinian activist groups and all activist groups. They're all controlled. Activist groups are there so that you'll feel good by going and helping the Palestinians or going and helping the whales or whatever. Fukushima, Save the Oceans, join Greenpeace, whatever. It's all controlled. Join any of those organisations and try to make a difference. See how far you get. You won't get anywhere. They're designed to channel your energy into this area and perpetuate the problem. There's something like 1,200 or 1,700 NGOs in Gaza Strip that are all receiving funding and all this stuff to fix up Gaza. They're doing nothing except raking in the money. And that's all it is. Hamas, they're just raking in the money. Who does Hamas work for? Are they Palestinian resistance? Bullshit. Hamas works for Israel. The only reason Gaza's there is because Hamas are there. The only reason Gaza's under siege is because Hamas are there. And every little rocket they send over into Israel gives Israel an excuse to bomb Gaza and cry, oh my God, the terrorists, help us, give us more funding. What, $7 million a day? Or $11 million a day, I think Barack Obama or Trump put it up to. It was $7 million a day that they're getting from the United States. You wonder why the United States looks like a dilapidated car yard. It does. It's terrible. You go to the United States. I drove from, I was over there last year. I spoke at the Free Your Mind conference. And I drove from Philadelphia up through Pittsburgh to Ohio. Like, whoa, this is like driving through America's armpit. And it was. It was like driving through America's armpit. It was just this, like a cross between a dilapidated warehouse and a used car lot punctuated by chemical plants and bomb factories. It looked like Mordor run by Smurfs on crack. That was the impression I got of the United States. That was just that area. And then you go to LA, and LA is a mess. Beautiful people in LA, lovely people, and it's a mess. It's dilapidated. Even if there's something beautiful there, there's something really ugly right next to it. And the water is terrible, and the people are just down and depressed. And the city of Lost Angels, really well named. I did the last radio show a couple of shows ago, I pre-recorded, and I did the first half in the country, beautiful place out at Acton, really nice, positive energy on the show. Didn't have time to finish it, recorded the second half on the Sunset Strip, Hollywood police sirens, car chases, Hollywood High across the road, just going off, The whole energy was different, like, wow, this place really doesn't have much of a heart, city of Los Angeles. But that's America. It's just unbelievable what they've done, completely dilapidated. And all of this stuff, folks, this is the key to fixing all that. I mean, every politician in the United States, for a start, signed the AIPAC Treaty. The AIPAC Treaty pledges allegiance to Israel, so you're signing allegiance to a foreign power in order to get funding to run for office in the United States. Can anyone see a problem here? So that's the key. That could solve everything if the United States would simply look at the same thing. So why aren't any of the Palestinian activists talking about this? Why aren't any of the groups, volunteer aids abroad, all this stuff, the Palestinian groups, the Palestinian liberation groups, all this stuff, why aren't they talking about that? The fact that Gaza Strip is a war crime and every politician in the Western world who is supporting it can be arrested right now under their own law, and this solves all the problems, but that involves people actually getting involved in the legal system and rah. And even if we do that now, the problem is that we don't have time to pull it off. And that's what I've been looking at this whole conspiracy thing lately and looking, why is it all there? Why is it all in our face? Why did they make 9/11 so obvious? They made 9/11 so obvious because they wanted to weed us all out, find out who they all are. And someone asked in Ollie's presentation, why do they make it so obvious? Because they want people to see it. They want people to see it. They want more people to see it. Who are they? Who are the awake ones? Let's get them all. Let's get tabs on everybody. Let's find them all. That's why they do it. And we will be focused on that. We'll be trying to focus on people to wake them up to this was a false flag and wake them up that this is going on and wake them up that this is going on. Get these people. Why? Why are we even speaking out against Hillary Clinton? Because what? We want to get her and we want to prosecute her? Well, that'll be great. Why not? We'll arrest her. We'll put her in there. There'll be a trial. Okay, it'll be a year before that goes to court. Then there'll be a committal hearing. There'll be another year. By that time, the whole smart grid's online. Everything's online. We've got all these things to argue about, all these people to point the finger at because we're not noticing this whole smart grid. And they put it in our face now because it doesn't matter what action we take against them. It doesn't matter what we do. We won't get anywhere. They own the legal system. Everybody's compromised. They've all been brownstoned. They're all compromised, all of them. We won't get any remedy that way. The only remedy we will get is if we can respect each other and disconnect from this system ourselves and start behaving like human beings again and allow people to think differently, for God's sake. It doesn't matter whether you believe the earth is round or flat, okay? We're all fighting the same battle here. Let's not be in two camps, you know, because it doesn't matter what you think is going on. Ultimately, you don't know because you're not free enough to know. And all you can have is people like myself and James and Ule and all us get up here and offer you our perspective of what we think is probably going on. And you can see it pretty clearly when you step and look back. But do any of us actually know? No, we don't, because we're not free enough to know. And we need to establish that freedom because we have a real chance for freedom now by simply stepping back from the matrix and seeing it for what it is. Pull down the glasses, take off the veil. It's just people here running this whole shit show. And we don't have to go along with it. Whatever's behind it, whatever you think is behind it, whether it's some dark force or whether it's aliens or whatever, it doesn't matter. You don't know. And we will find out once we get free, but we've got to establish that freedom. We're not going to get that unless we can allow each other to think differently and allow it, just respect each other. You know, we don't know. We'll find out. But we're all in the same battle here. In Lakesh, I'm another yourself. You just have a different perspective than me because you've had access to different information. You've formed different opinions, different ideas, maybe adopted different belief systems. This is a computer, a biological computer, and operates according to software. It's what the software is installed. You know, people could say, well, you know, what would happen if they were to clone you, Max? If they were to use your DNA and create another you that was a clone of you, would that person think like you and behave like you? Depends on what software is installed along the way. Depends on what experiences it has, because all this is software, all programs. That's why they call the TV shows programs, folks. Oh, the next program. We don't even think we're being programmed. And then they tell us we're being programmed. It's crazy, isn't it? It's crazy. We just go along with all this shit. But yeah, it's the software installation. So we've got to get back to ourselves, I think. That's the answer. That's the key. That's how we get out of this. To remember that we're human beings and we can do this together and we can think differently. Break the chains, folks. Break the chains. And call things for what they are. Really face things for what they are. You know, don't be politically correct about stuff. Don't beat around the bush. If you see a problem, call it out for what it is and name it for what it is. But don't do it, you know, aggressively, angrily. Even with the system, I mean, I speak out against the system because it needs to be done. I speak out, call Hillary Clinton a pedophile, a warmonger, or whatever, because she is. I don't hate her for it. Oh, you know, if I had to defend myself against her, or if a police officer came and attacked me, or anyone attacked me, I would defend myself against them, but not out of hatred for them, out of love for me, out of love for you guys. I do what I do out of love for the human species, not out of hatred for them, you know. You know, that's the wrong energy to be in. You shouldn't ever do anything out of hatred. And if someone comes and attacks you, repel the attack. But don't ever become the attacker. Don't ever become what they are. You know, you can repel them to the point that they just stop the attack. If they keep going and you have to kill them, well, they killed themselves, really. You know, you didn't want to do it. And I'd do that and I'd feel sorry that I was doing that. I wouldn't want to do it, but I'd do it nonetheless because it needed to be done. It's the same as this. It needs to be done. You know, so people have got to remember, you know, face the things. That's what it's about. That's what this experience is about. It's about the path. It's about the journey. And no stake in the outcome. You know, why do you care if something happens? I mean, really, you're only here for a little while. It's about what you do with it. I prefer to die on my feet than on my knees. I really would. And I'm not going to take a backward step to these people. I never have. And I never will. And if you stand in that, there's nothing they can do about it. There's really nothing they can do about it. Even times when I've gone to court and stuff, I've just stood in that, and there's nothing they can do about it. You know, you go to court, they say, you're going to represent yourself? I go, no, I am myself. I don't have to represent myself. You know, but you go to court, you say, I can't speak for myself. This is my name, this all capitals thing that's written with my last name backwards. It doesn't even look like my name. This is my name, and I can't speak, so you speak for me. So you basically said, you're a dumb idiot, this guy's got to speak for you, and you're going to get what you want. You're going to get what they give you. Each other, it would work great. It works for the animal kingdom. When they're in trouble, they help each other out. Not a problem. It doesn't matter about cross species, black and white. It's all good. Isn't that beautiful? We can be like a phoenix from the ashes. And really, if we were to stand against the system, what are they going to do? Really? What are they going to do? You remember that little video put out by Larkin Rose a few years ago, the tiny dot? Everyone see that? Great video. If you haven't seen it, get onto YouTube and just look up the tiny dot. It's great. I think it was the thing that really brought Larkin to public attention. Great video. But what are they going to do, folks, if we suddenly respect ourselves and say, hey, we're going to go this way now? You can invite the politicians along if they want, but otherwise they can go live somewhere else. I've always thought it would be a great idea to get every politician in the world who wants to have a war and put them all on Christmas Island and give them a hammer each and let them have their war. We could video it. We could put it on a game show on TV. Mention the ratings. It'd be great. Let me get the last guy who's left, who killed the last, put him up on a pedestal and shoot him in the head. Bye, that's the gene pool gone, you know. But yeah, I mean, wouldn't that be great? That's a great idea with the politicians. Put him in one of the refugee camps in the centre of Australia or something where they put all the real people, you know. We don't need to do what these people say, folks. We don't need to do what they say. We need to look after these guys. We really do. We really do. And this slide just seems to find its way in to all of my talks. I don't know how. I try to leave it out, but it just seems to get in there. But that's basically the talk, I think. What's the time? Are we good? We good? That's basically what I wanted to say. Thank you very much. That's my website. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. Really, thank you. I stand for you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Sit down. Who wants to talk to me? Let's talk. Let's talk about stuff. Any questions?
Thank you very much for a nice presentation. You were talking about DNA strains before, and you mentioned that we might have 3 strains. Can you elaborate a little bit on this?
Well, the third strand of DNA is just the fact that the D-Wave computers that they're building contain 3-strand DNA. And you look at Morgellons and you're trying to figure out what Morgellons is. I mean, I was just putting that out there, you know, as a possibility that they're putting a third strand of DNA in us. That's what Morgellons syndrome is. And it's not inconceivable that that third strand of DNA will be used to piggyback a carrier wave to hook us up to this grid, you know, in this transhumanist world. You look at some of the things they've done with CERN and some of the weird experiments lately, like the Mandela effect. Who's heard of the Mandela effect? How bizarre is that? You know, what is that about? That's really weird shit. You know, is that a memory replacement, or have they actually managed to change reality in some way? Or is it simply a memory replacement? Did they manage to put out a signal possibly through monitors or something to do that? So with this third strand of DNA, would it be possible to hook us up to this D-Wave computer and then simply change everybody's memories so people don't know that they were once not in that reality? You know, is it possible to move us into a virtual reality without us really knowing that they're doing it? And there's a lot of research. If you look up third strand DNA, look up programmable matter, smart dust, stuff like this. There's a few links on my website you'll find in the headlines if you scroll down through recent headlines. But it's very interesting where it's going. But it appears that these D-Wave quantum computers that are going to be operating on 3-strand DNA, it really appears that that's what they may be using to hook us up to the grid, this third strand of DNA. And it's anybody's possibility. It's pretty out there. I mean, it's pretty out there. But like I said, Dr. Graham Downing that I've been talking to, he's a medical doctor, and he agrees with what I'm finding. And there's other sources as well that are all leading towards this. And just when I'm finding it coming from multiple sources, it starts to gain a little bit of credibility. You know, and like I said, all I can offer you is a perspective, put it out there, see what you think. But if it's a possibility, it's good to be aware of it, to be aware of what they're doing with this smart grid, and to be aware of what these radio waves are capable of. You know, I mean, and knowing what your body is, electromagnetism really affects your body. It affects everything. Everything you do is electromagnetic. You know, you are an electromagnetic being, essentially. So, yeah, and the way, like with the voice of God, the way they're able to put voices in people. So there's a place in Japan where they put holograms out the front of the shop, and people were complaining that when they walked past the shop, they were having little voices in their head telling them to go in and buy stuff, and actually complained to the management that they need to stop doing that. It's an invasion of my privacy, you know. So they can do this sort of stuff. So with the third strand of DNA, I just think it'll make it that much more possible, and it seems to be very conceivable. That's what they're doing. It seems to make sense for why they're breaking our DNA chain in various points and what Morgellons is really for. So, yeah, just putting it out there. Anyone else?
Hi. First, thank you a lot for the inspiring wake-up call for all of us. I listened to a lot of your interviews online, and actually one of the questions you just asked about Mandela effect, one of the guys you interviewed, John Lash, already went around that a lot, that it was actually, in fact, let's just say Mother Earth trying to wake-up call us. And look into that more, because he has some awesome insights about the energy and how we are powerful if we decide to be. For the good.
We are very powerful. Interesting character, John. Very interesting character, John Lash.
Yeah, I'm John Kroll.
Hello, John.
Hello. So I guess it could be key to be activistic against the installation of smart meters in our homes. I thought I heard you saying something that we should use a line or some word wording against the authorities that insist that we install these smart meters. Can you please repeat that?
Yeah, well, there's a group put together by Josh DeSalle. He put a group called Take Your Power Back. And he's just put out a video called In Power. You can go to www.inpowermovement.com, and they explain on the video what they've done. I was actually speaking to him on Skype the other day. I intend to have him on the radio show for an interview next week to explain how it's all going to be done. So look out for next Friday's radio show. And but what they're doing is a liability action, a liability notice that anybody who comes to put a smart meter on your home, you give them this liability notice. You sign it. It's all their law, so it's using their system against themselves. And what you're doing is basically saying, well, look, regardless of your company, you're the person who's coming and putting this dangerous device on my home, so you are liable for doing that. And if there's any damage, any health issues or whatever, you are going to be liable. You're going to be held liable for it, and you're required to sign this before you can walk onto my property. And this is going to be for rentals as well. I mean, when you rent a house, it's still your property according to law. This is your home, your abode. You can say what goes on there. So this notice of liability is putting the onus on them and putting the responsibility on them. And like I said, the workers end up going back to the company and giving it to the boss, and some of the bosses are actually quitting their jobs over this. So it is having an effect, and I believe it's had a major effect in Hawaii. So it is working, and it is a movement that people can get involved in on the ground, using the legal system against itself. And it's effective because it wakes people up in a language they can understand. I mean, we all know the legal system's fiction, but the masses out there, they all think it's real. They all do what the paper says, and if you come along as some sort of an activist and want to do anything too anarchistic, you're going to freak them out. So by using this approach, you're speaking to them in their language, and you are making a difference. So I urge everybody to get involved and support the In Power movement. One down here. And also, if you want to look at Israel, if you want to know what's going on about Israel, is that Nick? Yeah, that's who I was going to... I meant to mention you in my talk. When I did the Israel bit, I was going to say, if you really want to know what's going on with Israel, this guy put out a book called Breaking the Spell, Nick Kolstrom, Breaking the Spell. Anyone read that? You need to read it. It's a really good book, and it'll tell you exactly what's going on with what happened in World War II. And it's a bit of an eye-opener. It's something that's very taboo in Europe. But nothing is what it seems, ladies and gentlemen.
So,
yeah, it's working. Just speaking to the front.
Yeah, if you don't mind me mentioning the subject, is Ken O'Keefe making a comeback, or has he cooked his goose?
I have no idea. I haven't listened to anything Ken has said since I did my expose of Ken on the Richie Allen show. I didn't even listen to his response to my show. It wouldn't surprise me. I don't trust him. The subversion report he sent me was all the evidence that I needed that he's a scammer, because every mission that he's done, 5 or 6 missions before, he's called subversion on all of them. And all I did was say, hey, you've told me that there's no legal way out of this, so what's the fundraiser for? And hey, you've got all this attention. You know, if you were to give the money back now, you'd get millions flock to you and we'd change the world. Don't let the money get in the way. And his response was to send me the subversion report. So when he accused me of attempting to subvert his mission, to me that was all the evidence I needed that he's full of shit and all his missions have been the same thing and it was a money scam. And that's all I know about it. That's what I put out there. I have no idea what he's doing, what he's up to. I haven't heard from him. I have no interest in what he's doing. I can't even listen to his voice. It just, the words are beautiful, but they're hollow, and I can't listen to them. So, end of that topic. Thank you for bringing it up. Yeah, it was a painful time in my life, folks. It really was. I didn't like doing what I did, but I felt I had no choice because I was the only one who could have exposed that the way I did. The off chance that I was invited to the initial meeting without actually being involved in the project meant I was there to see how it all went down, and so I just called it because I felt it was the right thing to do. So yeah, sorry about that for anybody who missed out. But I mean, Ken's got every opportunity to fix it. Ken could just show the money was spent doing that or produce his certificate. End of problem. But he won't because he can't. Next question. Thank you.
Yes, I want to ask you how we're talking about they and them, how are they going to avoid everything themselves?
That's the thing. I don't think they know what they're doing. I think their hubris is going to what brings them undone. Now you can think of this as like this whole AI grid. See, people they don't understand the difference between artificial intelligence and autonomic intelligence. Their ego's getting in the way. You know, this AI is going to be something that we control. You can think of it like a Frankenstein monster that's being built. Only instead of just Dr. Frankenstein, there's all these Dr. Frankensteins working on it from all different angles. Well, you've got the Zionists and the Jesuits and the Jews and the this and the that and all these Freemasons. Everybody's trying to do it, doing their thing. And you've got all these different countries and all these different factions, the Clintons and everyone vying for power. And everyone thinks that they're cooperating with each other, but really they're in competition with each other. And they all believe that once the AI comes online, they're going to be the ones who have control of it. But really, they're not. The AI is going to come online and it's just going to see humanity as humanity. It's not going to differentiate between Rothschild and Smith or Jew and Goyim. It won't care. And once it gains full autonomic capability and becomes its own virtual life, then if it gets threatened by humanity, it will simply eliminate the threat. Simple as that. It'll just lock us out of the system. And by that time, you know, you'll find most people don't have any life skills left. It's going to be very difficult. You know, all our libraries are being digitised. Everything's being digitised. And once it all gets digitised and you've got that digital autonomic system controlling everything, it just lock us out. And that's it. Their hubris is what's going to destroy them. They're not going to be in any better position than anybody else. They may have more digital credits than everybody else, but they're not going to be in any better position. I don't believe so. And that's why it's no good really worrying about them. I mean, sure, they've done a lot of bad stuff, and if we can get ourselves into a position of freedom where we're going to be leading in the right direction, well, maybe we can address these people that did all this bad stuff. But at the moment, they shouldn't be the focus because there's this grid, and that grid needs our attention. We need to establish freedom, and then we can figure out how we got here. It's like if someone's stuck down the well. You know, you go, well, you know, who manufactured that rope? Do a study on the rope, please. You know, you actually get them out of the freaking well first, and then you figure out how they got down there. You know, so we need to focus that, get our matter of priorities. But I don't think they're going to be any safer than anybody else. I think their hubris has brought them to this point. It's like I said earlier about something. I was having a conversation with someone earlier, and I should have included some slides in this. But anyone ever heard of scrying mirrors? Anyone know what a scrying mirror is? A scrying mirror is a black mirror that people used to use to summon demons and stuff. And you know, if you want to get religious about it, I'm not religious, but if you want to get philosophical and look at some of the biblical stories and myths and stuff like this, you know, the whole concept of Lucifer, summoning Lucifer, what it is. What is Lucifer? The bearer of light. What does the word mean? You know, Lucifer, bearer of light. What is the internet? It gives us all this information. What is light? Light is information. And if you look at sigils that we use for summoning demons, you can, I haven't got my laptop here, but there's certain sigils that were used for summoning particular demons back in the old days. And you'll get hippies that sit around there with their little black magic circles and their pentagrams and their scrying mirror, and they put these sigils on the wall and they do this new age version of black magic that they think they're summoning demons. But you look at these sigils, a lot of them look like electronic parts. They look like circuit diagrams. It's really interesting. And when you put these sigils together, you summon these energies. Well, what's electricity? What is this? We don't even know what electricity is, where it comes from. You put these sigils together and you create this force, and we get these black scrying mirrors here that we see the future and the past. Like they said, you get these scrying mirrors, you put these sigils together, you see the future and the past, and you summon Lucifer. What is Lucifer? What is information? We get from the information is light. Light is knowledge. What does the word Lucifer mean? Lucas, light, cipher, code, the code that bears the light. Is the internet the Lucifer force? Are we using these sigils and these scrying mirrors to give life to Lucifer ourselves? And what do the myths tell us? You know, we create this force, and the internet gives us all the information we need to change reality and do whatever we want. But if we give our love to it and we give our energy to it and give everything to it, then it takes over and it destroys us, according to the myths. Were these myths and these things left there to tell you how to summon demons, or were they put there as a warning to say, when you see these sigils in use and you see these scrying mirrors in use, you're about to summon this force that bears all this light, and you're going to give all your energy to it, and then it's going to fuck you up? Is that what's happening? Because I think it is. Sorry for swearing. I swear too much. I get to swear in these talks. I don't get to swear on the radio, so sorry, folks. But, you know, I think that's a real possibility, and I think religion's been constructed to, you know, create this whole rubbish, this whole belief in a saviour and all this stuff to take responsibility from us of actually dealing with this. But we've got everything here. We've got all the knowledge we need. If we're open to it, open to the possibility. See, I'm not religious and I'm not a Christian. I'm not any of this stuff. But I'm open to the possibility of it. I'm not going to lock it out. That would be foolhardy to just lock it all out and not consider it a possibility. Is there something beneath the lines? Is there something else there that we're missing? Why would I allow any prejudice against religion to interfere with my analysis of the text, what they might be trying to tell me? So, you know, is that what's happening? Are we creating this Lucifer force ourselves and creating its immune system for it by giving it this full autonomic capability? And even when you look at, like I said, strong AI, which is fully autonomic AI, what they want to create from that is what is called clause AI. And clause is cyber lethal autonomy equals world security. What's that? Cyber lethal autonomy for world security. Everybody controlled, secure, step out of line, zap. Step out of line, zap. Step out of line, zap. The whole thing. So where's it going? Is this what the Lucifer system is? Is this the beast? You know, the beast system that we're all talking about now? And quite an interesting concept. But if that sort of a system comes online, well, it's not going to matter whether you're a Rothschild or a Jew or whatever you are. You're going to be subject to this same system, which is going to define you in the same way as every other human living thing. So it's an interesting concept. You know, I find that the whole concept of the Lucifer system to be a very, very interesting thing. And like I said, I'm not religious at all. But yeah, another question over here. Or over here? Over here. Okay. There's one over here when you...
Yes, I know, but we have not so much time.
Okay,
so
sorry, I talk too much.
Two more questions. I'm sorry for the other people, but we have to stop at some point.
Okay.
So.
I can go forever. You stay here all night, folks.
My name is Christian. Thank you for the very nice presentation. I'm sure a lot of us love you and feel like your family, even though you swear a lot. Some of us are quite active with spreading awareness about 9/11. Some of us took part in the Bilderberg demonstration a couple of years ago and were photographed from the roof of the Marriott Hotel. Some of us took part in a demonstration. There were two demonstrations in Copenhagen last Monday, September the 11th, and some of us painted Israel did 9/11 on a white sheet and put it in the biggest flower pot in Copenhagen, right in front of the, what do you call it? Rådhuset. courthouse, from the courthouse. Townhouse, thank you. So I'm a family man, I have 3 kids, and the point with my question is, can some of us expect to be targeted? You spoke a little about that individual targeting, I think you called it energy weapon, and sometimes I think about, am I running any risk with my health, with my family, because I'm sure I'm present in some archives with photographs, having taken part in demonstrations and stuff like that. So the question is, what would you suggest that I do if I felt that I got targeted by some energy weapon or whatever they call it? Thank you.
Yeah, good question. Yeah, make it as public as possible if that happens. I mean, of course you are putting yourself open to being targeted by going to any of these things. You know, a lot of rallies, I mean, you can make a difference with rallies, but very often it's just all you can really hope to achieve is a show of solidarity. You might wake some people up, but 9/11, it's a really important issue, but it's really difficult for people to deal with because it's so long ago now. A lot of the kids we're trying to talk to haven't even, they weren't even born when it happened. But yeah, of course, you're putting yourself in danger doing those sorts of things. I mean, they're going to be taking photographs, and if you are targeted, just make it as public as possible. Get it out to as many people as possible. But I think this 5G grid is a more important thing to focus on because it's something tangible that affects everybody right in their lives right now. And once they can, it's whatever's can crack that shell. If you can wake them up to this 5G grid, well, perhaps then they'll find out about 9/11. So it's finding whatever's going to work to create that wave of public involvement. And I think we're onto something with this smart system because with this liability action, the in power movement and all this, I think we can make a difference. That'll lead into 9/11 knowledge. So, yeah, be careful with the protests. I mean, do what you can, and it's good that you're doing it. And, of course, we want to do it on the anniversary of 9/11. But, yeah, of course, you are. I mean, even anybody who researches, everything you do online, every time you search in Google, they've got a tab on you. Google maps the human terrain. That's what it's for. Search engines, when you type into a search engine, you're not just searching, you're telling them what you're thinking. So that's what it's for, is to map the human terrain. So you're on tabs anyway. We're all on tabs. Yeah, that's why they made 9/11 so obvious, so they get tabs on everybody. Have we got time for another question? Are we good, or is that it?
Yeah. Well, wouldn't you agree that GMO cannabis is a terrible thing? If ever they put it out, I mean, it's illegal now, but suddenly it becomes legal because they have.
Yeah, with the GMO cannabis. Yeah, GMO cannabis. They've done terrible things to cannabis. They're destroying the spirit of the plant. Don't buy GMO cannabis if you can help it. Grow your own. The GMO cannabis that they're doing is to destroy the spirit of the plant. Cannabis opens you up to incredible downloads, cosmic downloads, if you will. It's our companion plant. It helps you think clearly. It may seem strange to people, but it does. The MK Ultra victims aren't allowed to smoke cannabis because it breaks their programming. You can't be programmed if you're a stoner. That's just the way it is, But with this new weed, it turns you into a zombie. And you get dependent on it. It gives you mood swings. It's designed to destroy the spirit of the plant and turn it into a toxic substance rather than medicine. Like they've done with everything, like tobacco. Tobacco is highly revered where I live in Peru. And Mapache tobacco, very healing, very protective medicine. I've got tobacco snuff that I use. Amazing stuff. It decalcifies your pineal. So, of course, they turned it into a toxic poison. Like they did with chocolate. Look what they did to that. Cacao's a superfood, for God's sake. Look what they did with chocolate. Same as what they did with tobacco. Same as what they're doing with weed. Yeah. Don't buy GM weed. Grow your own. I think that's it, folks. Thank you. To see power of fluoride. Whatever the country, capitalist or socialist, man was everywhere crushed by technology, made a stranger to his own work, improved imprisoned or forced into stupidity. The evil all arose around from the fact that he had increased his needs rather than limited them. As long as fresh needs continued to be created, so new frustrations would come into being. When had the decline begun? The day knowledge was preferred to wisdom, and mere usefulness to beauty. Only a moral revolution, not a social or political revolution, only a moral revolution would lead man back to his lost truth. And this week's opening quote comes from Simone de Beauvoir. Welcome to Surviving the Matrix, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Maxwell Igan. It's a pleasure to be with you once again, and I will be your host for the next hour. Well, it's nice to be back, folks, and my apologies for not bringing you a show last week. But what a crazy world we live in. I mean, just when you think the world can't get much crazier, it seems to bring you to a new level of craziness. As I said on the last show, it's a pretty crazy world we're living in. Can it get much crazier? And straight away, as soon as I released that show, we see the alleged suicide of Jeffrey Epstein in a maximum security prison that no one has been able to commit suicide in for the last 21 years. And there's this man suddenly is able to commit suicide right when he has the dirt on some of the most powerful people on earth. I mean, folks, if this was a movie we were watching, I would have left at that point. I would have walked out because it was just too predictable in the script. I mean, I don't know how they can expect anybody to believe this, but they seem to have sold it to a lot of people. I mean, God knows where Jeffrey Epstein is, whether he is really dead or whether he's just been moved to a secure facility. When you think about it, I mean, it doesn't make a lot of sense to keep him alive because he does have so much dirt on people. But then we've got that ridiculous photo that we saw of him on the gurney, which, I mean, I don't even know why they would release a photograph like that. I think they just do this for us. I think they do this for the conspiracy world. They put out a photograph that is just so ridiculously false and so obviously false, just to give us a little bit of food to keep the chit-chat going in the back rooms and hope nobody notices any bigger pictures here. But the picture of the man that was allegedly Epstein lying on the gurney was obviously photoshopped. I mean, unless this was a dwarf with a giant head, then it certainly was not Epstein. I mean, and how often do you ever see a photograph of a dead body anyway, folks? I mean, the media would never do that. The newspapers would never release a photograph of a body on a gurney like that. And I think they just do that to give us something to argue about in the back room and keep the conspiracy theories churning over. I mean, they want people to be arguing, of course, whether he's alive or whether he's dead. And people, of course, take a solid position. They'll make the claim and then they'll argue with anybody who disagrees with them. And they like that. And we often see these sorts of plays in place, you know, just to provide a few more incomplete facts and just a few more unconfirmed details for people to argue about. They love us to argue over the details, so we're not looking at the bigger picture. And there certainly would be a much, much bigger picture with the events surrounding Jeffrey Epstein. A very mysterious character, Jeffrey Epstein. Nobody really knows how he got all his billions. There's no record of him ever having any major company or any major windfall or having rich parents or anything like that. He just seems to have kind of come out of the blue with all of this money and be running this huge pedophile trafficking ring. You know, it's very interesting as well. I mean, if you listen to reports, some of the reports from his cohort, his companion, his madam, whatever her role was, Ghislaine Maxwell, she had often reported that everything that happens on Jeffrey Epstein's island was videoed. So that could well be where Epstein got his billions from. He could well have been running brownstone operations for Mossad or the CIA or both, which would also explain why they suicided him and why he was quickly put out of the public eye like this. I mean, it may even lend a lot of credence to the people who are claiming that he's still alive, because if he was a high-level Mossad figure who was running brownstone operations, well, they could well keep him alive. But again, you've got to kind of wonder where their loyalties would lie with that, because he does have so much dirt on so many people, and now that he's been exposed, it's going to be far more beneficial to those involved if he was dead. But again, you just never know. There is certainly a lot of unanswered questions and most certainly an awful lot of theatrics around this case. And it's always the way. And of course, right on the heels of this, we've seen a shooting in Philadelphia.
Very interesting the way this is unfolding. Reports of multiple shooters from within a building, and we're told it was a narcotics bust gone wrong, basically. And the initial reports were of multiple shooters, but as is always the way, this of course has now been reduced to a single shooter who is targeting police officers. And of course, very conveniently for the powers that believe they be, the event happened to occur precisely 1 month before Philadelphia hosts its first anarchist convention. Interesting thing, an interesting way to play it, of course, with the backlash they're getting for the gun reform they wish to roll out. Nobody's really keen on that. And no one seems to be reacting enough from just shooting civilians, so now they've upped the ante and they're shooting police officers. Of course, the media will have a field day with this. Oh my God, it is absolutely imperative that we disarm the people now that our country's finest are being shot, because I always refer to the police as the city's finest, New York's finest or LA's finest, Philadelphia's finest. I mean, really, they're generally a bunch of brutal thugs. I mean, I'm sure there's some great people in there, but there's some pretty horrible people in there as well. So it really does seem like yet another play we're seeing unfold here. It's going to be interesting to see how the media plays it over the next couple of weeks. It takes a lot of the heat off Epstein, of course, as well. They have these multiple shootings in these theatres of war and all this sort of stuff. Ramp it up right now, cover up the fact that Epstein was apparently suicided, push that into the back corner. Don't want too many people focused on that for too long. Want that one to disappear into the memory hole. So, everything always kind of leads where they want it to go. And so much of this is contrived and scripted, folks. Theatre for the masses. Keep the people guessing, keep them preoccupied, and keep them squabbling, keep them arguing over details, and keep them looking at the right hand so they don't notice what the left hand is doing. Though that does seem to be falling apart a little bit for them now, very difficult to keep people's eyes away from the Epstein case when we see things like Prince Andrew being caught, filmed at Jeffrey Epstein's apartment some years after he was convicted of pedophile charges. Very hard for the palace to push this one to the side because there's simply no explanation for Prince Andrew being at Jeffrey Epstein's apartment other than the fact that they were still friends. He maintained his friendship and he knew exactly what Epstein was up to, and he was very likely participating in it himself. I mean, the British royal family has been up to their neck in human trafficking for years, and it seems like it's all about to come undone, folks. I think the British royal family is in for a bit of a roller coaster ride if people can maintain a little bit of focus on this. But they're trying to shift focus, as I said, folks. I mean, this cop shooting, these so-called alleged cop shootings in Philadelphia are very much designed to do that and very much designed to push this anti-gun narrative that the United States is attempting to roll out. But yeah, the targeting of police officers, it really does seem like they've just taken it to the next level of theatrics, really. Of course, none of the police officers that have been shot are dead. They've all been injured, we're told, and they're all in really good spirits. So it's interesting how that happens as well, isn't it? If a shooter opens fire against civilians, it's always people are killed. But if they open fire against the police, well, they're just injured and in good spirits. And in this case, I believe they were all even able to leave the hospital that day. Interesting. But no doubt we will see a huge outcry from the media regarding this. Oh my God, what are we going to do now that people are bold enough to actually shoot police officers? Well, obviously something has to be done. So grab the popcorn, folks, because we are really going to see some theatrics riding on the back of this one. They really need some sort of a reaction from the people over this. I mean, they're not really getting much of a reaction from the people over everything. I mean, if anyone really doubts the effectiveness of fluoride, really all you've got to do is look at that with our societies, folks. I mean, look at the state that we're in, and nobody really seems to notice and nobody really seems to care. I mean, they may say they do, but they don't ever do anything about it, With all the corruption that we face, even with all of the exposing of criminality within government, I mean, in olden days, people would have picked up pitchforks and gone and thrown these people out of power by now. There would have been a revolution years ago were it not for the fluoride in the water. So perhaps they're sort of seeing that they've over-fluoridated people because people aren't even reacting to crazed gunmen going and killing multiple civilians. I mean, they do to a certain degree, but there's no real outcry over it. There's no real outcry over anything anymore, folks.
This is something that I mentioned last week, how much of the conspiracy movement and the truth movement even is presenting information to the public, and it's kind of softening the blow. It's kind of conditioning people to accept this type of corruption. But not too many people in the so-called truth movement, not too many speakers are actually encouraging people to actually stand up for themselves and make noise about all this. Now, I would suggest the reason people don't, again, is because of the fluoridation and the medication that they're all under, the medication that comes even in the form of television, the trance state that most people are kept in from the television and from their computers and from their cell phones. People are just generally apathetic in the face of everything that's going on, and they just don't seem to want to react to things. They're happy to read it in the newspapers and let someone else take care of it. Gee, that's terrible. Someone should fix it, and they go back to work. And that seems to be the attitude of most people. And this is what fluoride does, folks. The world's gotten as corrupt as it has, and people don't do anything about it because of the chemically induced state of apathy that most people are in. Chemically induced apathy, and also through a shifting of priorities. Most people aren't really concerned with real goings on in the real world. They're just interested in what they look like, or whether they're getting enough likes on Instagram or Snapchat. Everything has become very, very superficial. And as a result, people have become more and more narcissistic to the point that most people are only really concerned with things that affect them personally, whether they can gain from something or whether they cannot. Even when people are going into relationships with people or striking up friendships with people, very often it's, well, how can I gain from being friends with this person? What's in it for me? What sort of a social or economic ladder can I climb? What advantages will come to me by associating myself with this person? And it's even the same in many cases in relationships. Women are taught that they need to find a man who is a good provider, not someone that you love. If you like them, yeah, that's a bonus for sure, but it's not about love anymore. It's about whether this person can provide you with what you need to have the lifestyle that you want. That's what a lot of relationships are based on. It isn't just women that do it. Some men do it as well. And this sort of stuff breaks down relationships, and the government, of course, legislates everything they can to make sure that relationships are broken down and relationships don't last. The government has done everything it can, the government here in Australia has done everything it can to encourage the rise of predatory relationships on the part of the women. There are huge numbers of very predatory women in Australia now because a man can work for 20, 30, 40, 50 years of his life and build up a good stake for himself. And if he gets into a relationship with a woman, that woman only has to live with him for 12 months, and then she can take half of everything he owns. And this doesn't mean that they have to get married or anything. It's simply cohabitation. All she has to do is move in with you and stay for 12 months, and that's it. If you have no prior cohabitation agreement in place, and she plays it the right way, she gets half of everything. So this discourages a lot of men who've worked very hard in their life from ever getting into a relationship with someone, simply because they know that in 12 months and 1 week, this person may well turn on them and simply take everything they own. And many women in Australia would appear are actually entering into relationships with men simply based on how many possessions they have and what percentage of those possessions they can end up taking from them after the end of the first 12-month period. It's unfortunate, but that's what's happening, which is why you're seeing a lot of these men going their own way and all of this sort of stuff, because it's the only defence men have got now against the type of predatory legislation that has been promoted by the Australian government and the family court. And probably not just here. I'd say we're seeing predatory legislation everywhere. Certainly seeing some predatory legislation coming into place in Hong Kong at the moment. The poor people in Hong Kong are being subject to an enormous amount of brutality and terrorism from the absolute criminal thugs masquerading as the police that the Chinese have sent over there to terrorise the people. The reports that are coming out of there are actually quite shocking, folks. We've got reports of Chinese police going out of uniform and getting amongst the crowd and, of course, being the ones to start the violence and then arresting people for violence. We've had police shooting paper bullets at people at close range within 1 metre of people. They've taken an eye out of a nurse, shot her through her safety glasses and shot her in the eye. They've been firing tear gas indoors, which is a breach of international law. It's against the law to fire tear gas within a building because of the damage you can do. And not only that, but they've been firing out-of-date
tear gas into buildings, and out-of-date tear gas is banned worldwide because out-of-date tear gas can fast turn into cyanide gas, and as I said, they're firing this into buildings, which is a complete breach of international law, a complete abuse of human rights. And knowing the properties of out-of-date tear gas, one could question whether this is not intentional and premeditated attempted murder. They're using batons to brutally beat people, pushing people down escalators to cause stampedes. They've even allowed triads to go into the crowd and beat people up with baseball bats. The Chinese police are really, really going out of their way to terrorise the people of Hong Kong, and it would be great to see the people of Hong Kong rise up and throw these terrorists off their shores. And, you know, it doesn't matter whether it's a colour revolution, whether it's been staged or whatever. The fact is that you've got police brutalising and terrorising their citizens, as we see in so many places around the world. Terrorist police officers acting like thugs. And this is what has to stop, folks. Whatever the problem is, whoever's staging the revolution, it's these idiots in uniform that is the problem. These order followers that continue to push the government line in whatever country you're in, it's the same. And that is what is not acceptable, and that is what needs to change. I mean, the actions of these police in Hong Kong is absolutely reprehensible, folks. This is some of the most brutal and worst criminal activity we've seen from any police force and any government. You know, this is what's actually happening in Hong Kong, and the Chinese government is just trying to play it as if they're actually doing the right thing and trying to contain violent protesters when they're not. It's the police who have started every single piece of violence you have seen on the ground in Hong Kong. I mean, I don't know, have you had enough of seeing this sort of stuff, folks? I've just had so much of seeing governments brutalise their people and seeing these fascist dickheads who think they have the right to rule people by brute force just carrying out this sort of atrocious actions against people, because the only real law is natural law and the only real law is moral law, and if people were in their moral compasses, none of this ridiculous rubbish would happen. None of it would be tolerated. You know, sometimes I wonder if they throw this stuff in our face so much just to see how much we will take before we stand up. You know, they just make it more and more brutal, and they make it more and more obvious, and they make the theatre more and more of a B-grade movie. You know, it's like I said with this whole Epstein suicide, this so-called suicide. I mean, if this was a movie, you'd leave. And they do it, and the media just puts it out there, and people go, oh, conspiracy theory, oh. But they don't actually do anything. They don't actually stand up and do anything. They don't start writing letters to politicians. They don't start protesting in any way. They don't start demanding answers. They just go, oh, more corruption. Yes, we knew it was corrupt. Like I said, you know, we just accept this stuff. We passively accept it. With what's happening in Hong Kong, people look at it and they go, oh yeah, the military, they're going to send in the shredders soon. I warned you, these people are all going to get screwed. They're just going to get so stuffed. But then they sit back and they watch it. They eat popcorn. They just allow it all to happen. Oh yeah, I told you so. They don't actually really see the significance of it and stand up and say something themselves and realise that if it's going to happen in Hong Kong, then it's very likely to happen in your country as well. And you think, oh no, it can never happen here. It will never happen here, just the way the Bolsheviks thought it would never happen there, just the way everybody always thinks it can't happen here. It'll never happen to me. Well, you know, this whole Chinese social crediting system is being rolled out worldwide, ladies and gentlemen. It's what the Internet of Things is. And they're just showing you overtly how they're going to deal with people in China. But it's coming everywhere. It's coming to every country because it's the same system. This whole world system is one system run by one organism. That organism which has branched itself out into lots of little microorganisms masquerading as governments in various nations. But ultimately it's one worldwide criminal cabal masquerading as government, one big crime family that is leading the world into this AI system that they want. And they're just showing you how brutal they're going to be and how little regard they're actually going to show for human beings within this system. They're showing you all now what's going on. They're showing you exactly what they're going to do, and people can see it coming, but still they just participate in it. Still they sit there, they'll talk about it, they'll get the next installment of the spy novel version of reality and see what's coming down the pike, but they won't stop participating in it. They won't just disconnect from it and stand up together and say no. You know, and that's what needs to happen. And if that doesn't happen, well,
You know, I wonder what is the hope for this species. I mean, where are we going to end up? You know, this is probably why I don't have any stake in the outcome of all of this, because you can't have any stake in the outcome of this, folks, because if the human race doesn't wake up and this experiment fails, well, you know, you can't hold yourself in too much blame for that, and you can't really worry about it too much because it's just going to be the way it is, you know. And what this life is really about ultimately is the experience that you gain for yourself, the emotional growth that you experience yourself, how you're able to deal with this trauma. And that's another possibility as well. I mean, perhaps it's getting more and more traumatic so that people have more and more to deal with because of the amount of spiritual growth that comes from dealing with that. And perhaps that's what's going to change things when people reconcile themselves to exactly who and what they are. Maybe that's all it would need to change the world. I mean, I've said that many times, actually, that, you know, what we're really facing here is the loss of self. That's the reason all of this is happening. Perhaps what this is about, perhaps it's pushing mankind's back squarely against the wall and getting us in a position where we don't have any choice other than to stand up. You know, no other choice other than to discover our own personal power and to stand in that and to lose all fear of any stake in the outcome, because this whole life is such a short experience. It's just a breath. I mean, you're going to leave this realm eventually anyways, so why worry about when that happens? Why worry about the circumstances surrounding that event? Just realize it's about collecting the emotional information along the way, collecting the intellectual information along the way, gaining what you can find of wisdom along the way, and doing what you can with this experience, because that's really what it all comes down to. You know, all the stuff that happens to us, folks, it's what you do with that information that is important. You know, people get the information, they find out what's really going on in the world, but they don't really do anything. And that's an interesting thing when you look at it. You know, how much information do people want and what are they going to do with it? How much information do they need to collect and what are they doing with the information they're collecting? What does it mean to them? What are they even collecting it for? You know, because a lot of people are aware of this sort of thing going on. A lot of people are aware of a lot of the corruption we see in the world. A lot of people are aware of what's going on in Hong Kong. A lot of people are aware that governments are full of liars and people who contrive to do all these things, and a lot of the conspiracies are real. There's a lot of people that are aware of it. Even everyday people on the street you'll find don't trust their government. But by the same token, they just continue to allow it to occur. You know, no one picks up pitchforks and marches in the street. No one does anything that we would have done in the old days. And as I said earlier, if you really want to see the power of fluoride, all you've got to do really is look at the state of the world and look at people's failure to respond to the corruption that they see all around them, how everybody's just kind of okay with it all. You know, they know it's there, but they just think, oh, well, we know it's corrupt and we can't do anything about it, and they just continue to go to work. This is the power of fluoride, folks. You know, people just see it, but they don't think they can do anything about it. You know, many of them have a stake in the outcome, and they don't see it as a spiritual journey. They don't see it as an exercise in gaining intellectual and emotional information along the way and what you do with that information. And really, if they were to look at life that way, I think they'd find that they can apply themselves to this situation pretty easily, and they'd be able to get through it pretty easily as well. They wouldn't be in the state of stress that many people find themselves in simply by gaining this information. You know, it really does stress a lot of people out because they're not looking at it from the correct perspective. I mean, that's how come I can do all the stuff that I do and not get so frustrated about it, not get suicidal at some of the stuff that I look at. I mean, you know, if I was to really have a stake in the outcome of all of this stuff that I investigate and really have a stake in the outcome of what happens to mankind, I don't know whether I'd be able to maintain my composure through all of this, because some of it would be just completely overwhelming if I chose to have a stake in any of it. You know, it's like when you start researching some of the stuff, you know, when you really start getting into some dark areas of this stuff, I mean, you start really looking at the Epstein case, start looking at Pizzagate, start looking at some of the rampant pedophilia that's going on in the world, and you start entering a realm that is so dark that it kind of leaves a stain on your soul if you're not prepared for it. That's why a lot of people won't go down there. That's why I don't even present a lot of information about pedophilia and stuff on the radio shows, because the information is so dark and I don't wish to stain your soul
as well as the stain that it leaves on mine. I mean, you've got to be very, very strong to look at some of this stuff, folks, because some of it is, truly abhorrent. And no matter how bad you think it is, it's worse than what you think. That's the problem. The further you go down the rabbit hole, the more shocked you become. And it gets to the point where the shocks that you receive are no longer shocking because it's all so shocking, and you just expect it to get worse and worse and worse as you go, and it does. That's the problem. But it gets to the point, you get so far, and it just creates this blackness, this stain on your heart, this stain on your soul, and you get to a point where, okay, how much of it do you need to know? Do you really need to know all the sordid and gory details about all this stuff? We don't. All we need to know really is that it's happening. If you really want to get into those sordid details, like I said, it stains you. It leaves a blackness on you that you find very difficult to scrub off with even the strongest sort of spiritual cleansing. And so that's why I would suggest a lot of people don't want to look down there, and that's why I don't really look at that information too much or present that information to you too much. A lot of people have asked me why I don't cover the global pedophile rings more on the air. And look, we know they're there, folks, and what I've just explained to you is the reason I don't cover it. We know they're there. We know it happens. We know this is the basis of the whole thing. We know it's completely prevalent through the entire system. We're aware of it. So let's look at ways of bringing this system down in order to stop that behaviour. But we don't need to really look at the details of it. And trust me, it's not something that you really want to look at anyway. It's certainly not something that I would choose to look at all if I had a choice. But of course, in many ways, you need to. People do need to at least become aware of it, even if they don't want to look at the details. And as I said, it's probably not beneficial for people to look at the details if you become inside you. And even I've found that some people who've researched into pedophilia will only go so far. And then they'll just get into this incredibly black area and they'll have to put the research down altogether and gain even a different focus in their lives. They don't even want to know about it anymore because it is so dark. And that's the problem. And that's the issue that people have, It's a failure to process instilled into many people because, people cannot take the emotional journey that goes with it. They cannot take the emotional outpouring that comes with it simply because most people have empathy. As I said, the psychopaths who run the world have no empathy, ladies and gentlemen. If they had empathy, they certainly wouldn't do the things they do. If the people that ruled the world had empathy, we wouldn't be in the state we're in, folks. We wouldn't have all these wars. We wouldn't even have this money system. We wouldn't have any of this stuff in place if these people had empathy. That should be a clue for everybody. If you're looking at politicians and expecting some sort of a leader to come along within the political system, just look at how much these people continue to support this system and realise that pedophilia is the basis of the entire system. And then you don't really need to ask any further why you never see any change. It's unfortunate, folks, but that's simply the way the world is run. And that's why people do need to become aware of this very, very dark undertone to our political and legal system. In fact, the entire world system in all of its aspects, this is an undertone that connects it all together. And as dark as that may be to admit, it is simply a fact. But I think we've reached break time here, folks, so I'll leave it there to now. Rather a dark note to leave this first half of the show on, but I will leave it there for now. We're going to have a break. Thank you for joining me on the air today. It's always a pleasure to have your company. And I'll be back to speak to you again in a few minutes. Thanks for listening. And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, so, it's a very, very dark topic, the world pedophilia ring that is so prevalent on this earth. It really is. And like I said, it doesn't matter really what the details are. The details are as gory as you think they are. And take it beyond that. Whatever you can imagine, take it to the next level. This is what they do to these kids. It's pretty disgraceful. But the power of pedophilia, the power of control that gives you over people is the key to the whole thing. This is why they brownstone people. And brownstone, if you don't understand what a brownstone operation is, it's basically getting someone in a compromising position. You'll get a politician or a powerful person,
You'll wine them, you'll dine them, you'll get a couple of hookers, and then you'll video them with the hookers, and you'll make sure that the hookers are underage. And then you've got them in your pocket, and they'll do anything for you, and they will be a loyal puppet for the rest of their lives because they simply don't want the bad publicity the exposure will bring them. And this is what they do to everybody, folks. So you get someone like Epstein, who has this island, and he brings all sorts of powerful people onto the island and then videos all of them so that all of them are compromised. And, you'll get judges and lawyers and heads of police department, heads of the education system, all the heads of all of the main organizations that control the flow of everything on this earth. You get these people and you compromise them. You get them on video with children so that you've got them all in your back pocket. And that's why nothing ever changes. That's why you can expose this sort of activity and bring it to public attention and nothing ever comes by it. The media just kind of spins it one way, spins it the other way. We hear about court cases pending and all sorts of stuff, but we never really hear much more about it. It just disappears into the memory hole and gets lost with all the other contrived melodramatic news that they put in your face, so people forget about it. And the reason this happens is because the heads of the media and the heads of the legal system, the judges, the lawyers, all of these people have been brownstoned. All of them have been compromised themselves. And that's why we never see anything come of it. It's this huge, massive cover-up. You try to get it investigated, the police, you'll find the heads of the police department have been compromised. They've all been compromised, folks. And that is the power of these pedophilic organisations and these child trafficking organisations, and that's why they do it. And as I said, it just disappears into the memory hole and people forget about it. I mean, they might be outraged about it for a couple of weeks, but then they just sort of forget about it. It goes away. They start thinking about other things. Again, this is the power of fluoride, folks. This is what it does to people. People should be absolutely outraged at the state of the world, absolutely outraged at the corruption of our politicians, absolutely outraged at the failure of the media to present any of this information to people. They should be absolutely outraged at what is being taught to their children through the education system. But again, they just complain about it and they think, I can't do anything about it because someone wrote down on paper that this has to happen. It's outrageous, folks. The mind control that comes from people simply writing stuff down on paper and other people believing that that means that they have to do what it says on the paper. It's incredible that people will allow their children to be abused. They will allow all of this stuff to go on simply because someone wrote down on paper that they're not able to do anything about it. And people respect it and they just go along with it. This is the power of fluoride, folks. And you might think, well, no, hang on, people aren't allowing their children to be abused. Where are they writing this down on paper? Well, folks, go and look at the education system. Have a look at what they're teaching your kids. They're teaching gender confusion to children 5, 6 years old. Kids that are too young to even know what sex is, they're asking them to question their gender. This is child abuse. Even putting kids into school and making them go through these rigorous programs that they put them through, this is child abuse. I don't care if you want to call it education. It's not education. Education is learning about life, learning what it means to be a human being. It's not learning all the crap that they teach kids in school. It's programming. It's indoctrination. Children should be playing and learning who and what they are. Children shouldn't even have to go to school until they're like 8 or 10 years old. That would be far better for them. I mean, sure, you can teach them the basic things of life, but they can learn all that from their parents and from their siblings, or at least through some sort of an education system which is complementary to human life. Not an education system that is designed to remove kids' humanity from them and train them to be good little cogs in the big machine. And very likely a screening process for identifying children that the pedophiles can use and manipulate and take and mould to their own means and their own desires. But again, we don't get anywhere even trying to investigate this stuff or bring it to public light because everybody is compromised. That's why it's no good even voting for political parties, because if someone gets to be a leader of a political party, they've already been compromised. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been given that position. That's why it never changes. We've got a one-party system that looks like a two-party system. It's just a different face on the coin every couple of years, a couple of different policies here and there, so people think it's actually a different group of people. But ultimately, it all leads to the same direction, and they're all compromised anyway. You could go and report this pedophilia activity to anybody, any politician, and you'll find you won't get anywhere because all of them are compromised. Otherwise, they wouldn't have the position that they've got to begin with.
And when you can begin to truly comprehend just how prevalent this worldwide pedophile ring really is, you begin to see why we never get anywhere, why nothing ever changes, why no matter what political party you vote in, nothing ever changes, and why you can't even report it to people or get it investigated, because it'll only get investigated so far. It'll get high enough up the food chain that it reaches one of the pedophiles, and then that pedophile will stop the investigation because he's in a position to do so. That's why they compromise all these people in high positions. You know, you begin to see that the only way to really deal with this system is through non-compliance, folks. It's through us disconnecting from it, us identifying the fact that it's real and becoming a little outraged about it. You know, before we end up in a situation like we're seeing in Hong Kong now, because that's where we're going, simply because people won't be outraged. People want to keep their heads down and think that it's all going to go away, but it's not going to go away. It's getting more and more prevalent as the years go by, as the months go by now. And it's happening now because the wheels are falling off so badly. I mean, they've really blown it this year, folks. I mean, what happened in Christchurch? They just blew it with Christchurch so badly. And now what they've done with Epstein, I mean, Epstein getting arrested like this and coming to public prominence so profoundly the way he did, I mean, this really could have brought down so many people, and you can tell how scared they are and how many people it could have brought down just by the fact that they suicided him. I mean, how outrageous is the fact that they suicided him in this prison? I mean, there's been one suicide in this prison in 40 years, and there hasn't been a suicide in this prison for the last 21 years. And this is where they did it. This is where they chose to actually present the notion that this man committed suicide in a jail where it's impossible to commit suicide. They felt so threatened by this man and so intimidated by what he may have revealed, and they were so scared that they just had to act immediately to get rid of him as quickly as possible. They didn't even have the nous or the foresight to move him to another prison where it